The first thing I felt was the steering wheel, hot, sticky, cracked vinyl peeling under my palms like old sunburn. The air tasted like melted plastic and something that had died in the upholstery a long time ago and never been properly discussed. My shirt was already glued to my back. Somewhere above me, the sun was doing its absolute best work. Then a voice spoke inside my skull, calm as a train announcement. From today onward, you will survive on this endless highway. I looked up, 16 lanes of gray asphalt running straight into forever. Grassland on both sides, flat and yellow. Mountains so far away, they looked painted on. No signs, no exits, no other side. There are no laws here, no morals, only the most primal savagery and power. Cool, great orientation speech, very welcoming. You have only one car, and that car is your only trustworthy companion. I looked at my only trustworthy companion. It was a Wuling minivan, in a shade I can only describe as matte regret. Wires hanging out of the dashboard, rust eating the wheel arches. Seat leather split open like a dropped melon. 2 windows had holes in them. Not cracks, holes. Somebody had punched this van, and the van had accepted it. You have one life. Death cannot be reversed. For the first 24 hours, you will be invincible. Use them well. And then it was gone, and it was just me and the heat and 31,251 other people somewhere out there on this same road, all of them presumably screaming. I know the exact number because a 13-inch screen lit up on the dashboard. It was the only thing in that van manufactured after the Bronze Age. 4 apps sat on it, like a very cheap phone. Chat channel, trading mall, car status, friend information, friends, 0. Thanks. Really needed that confirmed in writing at 8 in the morning. I opened the chat channel and the chat channel opened me. Where's my Lamborghini? I was doing my morning exercise with my wife. How did I end up here? There's a lion staring at me outside my car. First, check if it's male or female. 31,000 people, 1 working brain cell between them, and it was on loan. I loved them immediately. Car status was more honest. Wuling minivan, grade, discarded. That is not me being mean. That is the literal system classification. Fuel tank, 20 liters. Consumption, 7 liters per 100 kilometers, which meant this rolling coffin could take me about 300 kilometers into a road with no end, and then I would be a pedestrian in a place where lions apparently make eye contact. There was one good thing in there, a workbench. Feed it blueprints and materials, and it makes things. I had 0 blueprints and 0 materials, so mostly it was a very sophisticated way of storing nothing. Now here's what you need to know about me. My parents died when I was small. No relatives worth the word. No friends worth the trouble. I worked and studied and worked. My classmates looked through me like I was a window with a bad view, and my boss had cut my pay the month before with the specific joy of a man who enjoys his work. I remember standing outside that office thinking, honestly, could life get any crueler? Then the universe answered by dropping me on an infinite murder road in a van with holes in it. But here's the thing, standing there, sweating, holding a steering wheel that was actively trying to give me a rash, I did not feel doomed. I felt something else entirely. Everybody started from scratch this morning. Everybody. The rich kid with the Lamborghini got the same rusted van I did. For the first time in my life, the starting line was a straight line, and I was standing on it with everyone else. That was when the screen chimed. Talent detected, golden legend. You are someone blessed by lady luck. Danger always lags 1 step behind you, while good fortune always finds its way to you. You are the chosen one and the only one. Every lottery I enter, I win. Every 10 times I open something random, at least one of them comes back gold. I sat in that boiling van and read it 4 times. Then I laughed so hard the seat springs complained. 31,000 people out there arguing about the gender of a lion, and the universe had walked up to me personally and slipped a loaded deck into my back pocket. Nobody in the chat said a word about their talent. Not one person. 31,000 strangers all quietly deciding to keep their best card face down. Smart. I liked these people less already. I got out and walked around my van. Paint gone, tires worn smooth as a riverstone, headlights yellowed like an old smoker's fingers. The grass went on until it stopped being grass and became distance. The whole world had exactly one feature, and I was standing in the middle of it. Getting a manual van moving after 8 years of not driving one is its own kind of comedy. Clutch, gear, handbrake, stall, clutch, gear, handbrake, lurch. On the 3rd try, it coughed and rolled, and I hit a majestic 30 kilometers an hour, which on an empty 16-lane highway feels roughly like standing still while the world sweats. Then the screen said something better than anything it had said so far. Resource box detected 60 meters to the left. I pulled over. Out in the grass, gleaming dull bronze, sat a chest about the size of a microwave, and draped across the lid, sleeping in the sun, was a snake, black with gray spots, head shaped like a spear point, which is nature's universal font for do not. I had no weapon. I had no stick. I had a van with holes in it and 22 hours of invincibility left. 22 hours is a lot of hours. I want to be clear that what happened next was not bravery, it was arithmetic. If I lost nothing because right now I could not lose. If I won, I owned whatever was in that box. And if I somehow died anyway, well, 18 years later, I'd be a hero again. I grabbed the snake behind the head, it whipped around my wrist and drove its fangs into my forearm, and I felt exactly nothing because a soft gold light bloomed off my skin and ate the whole bite. The snake looked at me. I looked at the snake. Neither of us had a plan for this, so I slammed it into the ground and stepped on its head until it stopped having opinions. Then I opened my first box in this world, bronze treasure chest, basic living supplies, equipment, building blueprints, and gold light came pouring out of it. Iron axe blueprint, 24 bottles of mineral water, 500 milliliters each, and sitting in the middle of it, like a joke with a punchline made of steel, a Desert Eagle, normal grade, 7 in the magazine, 30 loose rounds, 37 bullets total. I stood in the grass on an endless highway holding a hand cannon on day 1, and I could not get the corners of my mouth back down. My face was harder to press flat than a 98K. Somewhere out there, 31,000 people were finding cardboard boxes with one apple in them. I collected the snake, and the word collected is doing real work there because the corpse dissolved into a neat little pile. Snake meat, a gallbladder, and 1 gold coin, which the system helpfully explained was currency and could not be used as material, so it was the least useful gold I would ever hold. The axe blueprint needed 1 iron ingot and 1 wooden stick and was reusable forever. I had neither iron nor sticks. I opened the trading mall to buy some and found a beautiful empty room with a 10-day free trial banner and absolutely nothing for sale because nobody on this road had figured out yet that they were allowed to sell things. Give it 6 hours. I had plans for that room. By noon, I'd done about 100 kilometers and burned a third of my tank, and the screen found me box number 2, 57 meters right. There was a gray fox asleep next to it. Beautiful animal, thick tail, sharp little face, absolutely no idea what a Tuesday had become. I walked up and kicked it in the backside. It came off the ground like a spring, spun, and launched itself at my throat, and 30 centimeters from my face, it hit the invisible wall of my invincibility and bounced. Just bounced, like a bird hitting a patio door. I have never in my life seen an animal look so personally insulted. I finished it with the butt of the Desert Eagle before it could file a complaint. Roast duck, whole, 20 liters of gasoline, and a space ring, standard grade, 100 cubic meters of storage that answered to a thought. I put the duck in the ring. I put the gasoline in the ring, I put a bottle of water in the ring, and took it out again purely because it felt incredible. Then I opened the chat channel to see how everybody else's morning had gone. Everybody had found boxes by then, and the pattern was brutal. Some people had food, some people had water, almost nobody had both. And out there in the noon heat on a road with no shade, that second group was starting to do the math on their own bodies. So I listed 2 bottles of mineral water in the trading mall. 9 seconds. That is how long it took for the chat channel to lose its entire mind. Brother Xiaoming, I'll offer 5 iron ingots. I'll offer 6 iron ingots plus 100,000 yuan in cash. Look at me. I can be your girlfriend as long as you can give me water. Ma'am, we are on an infinite highway. Your yuan is currently worth exactly as much as my snake gallbladder. And I checked. That's 1 coin. Then a private message came in, and it was different from the others because it did not beg and it did not shout. 3 iron ingots, 2 gold coins, and a blueprint. Car-mounted multifunctional rice cooker, 10 iron, and 1 electronic component to build. The name on it was Zhang Haoran. Now, a single blueprint is worth more than 5 iron ingots, and it isn't close. Iron gets spent. A blueprint pays out forever. Only a fool wouldn't take that trade. And whatever else I am not free labor. Deal, I said, and the water was gone. The second bottle I sold for 200 wooden sticks. I want you to picture that transaction. Somewhere out there, a man loaded 200 sticks into his vehicle, drove them to a rendezvous, and handed them over for half a liter of water. And honestly, I was the one who felt strange about it. 20 sticks compressed into 1 unit of wood. 10 units of wood came out of that pile. I fed 1 iron and 1 stick into the workbench, and the iron axe came out warm. I had a gun, a blade of sorts, a ring that ate cargo, and a customer base of 31,000 thirsty strangers. Day 1 was going okay. The screen chimed again in the afternoon. Resource area detected. The forest sat off the left side of the road like something that had been waiting there a while. Dark under the canopy, even in full sun, the trees packed too close. The whole shape of it wide and low, like a giant abyss beast lying with its jaws open, waiting for prey to walk in on its own legs. I walked in on my own legs, red berries first, low bushes, thousands of them, and I stripped every bush I passed on principle. Then a pheasant exploded out of the undergrowth at head height, screaming, wings going like a lawnmower, and I took it out of the air with one swing of the axe. 1 gold coin, 2 delicious pheasant legs, 5 bird feathers, 2 legs. That bird was the size of a toddler, and this world gave me 2 drumsticks and some feathers. I have never been so insulted by a corpse. There was a bronze chest in the bushes behind it, windproof lighter, headlamp, 5 electronic components. I strapped the lamp on and went deeper. Because the boxes were getting better the further in I went, and I had about 8 hours of being unkillable left to spend. 500 meters in, the light stopped working properly. The wind changed and came at me carrying a smell like a butcher shop with the power cut off. Then the eyes lit up, pairs of them, low to the ground, red as cut rubies, and there were a lot of pairs. They came out into my headlamp beam all at once, and I got my first proper look at what the night on this world actually holds. Blue-black skin stretched too tight, veins standing out on the arms like cables, mouths that opened wider than a mouth should, teeth strung with black fluid that dripped and sizzled in the grass, claws. 20 of them hit me at the same time, and every single blow died in gold light 6 inches from my body. I stood in the middle of a pile of nightmares while they tore at me with everything they had, and I felt the pressure and none of the damage, and I thought, with total sincerity, I wish I could stay invincible forever. Then I killed all 20 with an axe. Night Demon Serum, 20 vials, 100 cloth scraps, 200 gold. A second wave came in behind the first and gave me 10 more vials, 50 more cloth, 100 more gold. And then the trees stopped moving and something came through them that did not run. It was a night demon that had gone wrong in an interesting direction. Bigger, muscle stacked on muscle, a mouth that split into 4 petals when it opened, and 8 bone spikes standing up out of its stomach like a fence. It had 3 moves, a claw sweep across the chest height, a lunge with the teeth, and a dive at the legs when you gave it space. I know it had exactly 3 moves because I let it hit me for half an hour. That is not a joke, and it is not bravery either. I was invincible, and I was never going to be invincible again after tomorrow morning, so I stood in a dark forest and let a monster beat on me until I had memorized every single thing it could do. Claw, teeth, dive, claw, teeth, dive. Somewhere around minute 20 it started to look tired, which I found deeply satisfying. The head was the soft spot. The head is almost always the soft spot. I put the axe through it. 2 vials of serum, 5 cloth scraps, 20 gold, half an hour of my life for 5 pieces of cloth. I stood over that thing genuinely offended. It had a custom mouth and stomach spikes, and I thought it might be hiding something special, and it gave me the same loot as its idiot cousins with a 5% bonus. But behind where it had been standing, there was a silver chest, blanket, 10 iron ingots, and 2 blueprints. Car door, standard, 30 iron each, 5 uses. And then the second one, and I read it twice, and then I sat down in the dirt of a monster forest at night and grinned like an idiot. Anti-night demon serum. 1 night demon serum plus 1 unit of wood ash, reusable forever. Cures the infection if applied within 24 hours of exposure. After 24 hours, you turn, and then you die. Somewhere out there, 31,000 people had just been told the night was coming and had not yet met what lives in it. Please, I thought, please let nobody else have this one. I came out of the forest, built a fire on the shoulder of the highway, and roasted a snake and a fox while the sun went down on the first day. The chat channel had changed tone completely. It's been almost a day. I've found 3 resource boxes, and there is not a single thing to eat in any of them. I got a bicycle pump. What am I supposed to do with a bicycle pump? My box had a beach umbrella. I looked at my fire. I looked at the 2,000 red berries sitting in my space ring. 2,000. I listed them. Fresh berries, 10 berries per iron ingot. A man called Chen Long immediately got into the public channel to explain to everyone that my price was insulting, that 10 berries was nothing, that people like me were what was wrong with this world. Really beautiful speech. Genuine passion. 40 seconds later, Chen Long messaged me privately asking for 100. I sold every single berry. 200 iron ingots came back the other way, and I want to point out that I picked those berries off a bush with my hands for free, in a forest next to a monster. 150 of that iron went straight into the workbench and came back as 5 car doors. Here's a detail nobody warns you about. When you install a new door, the old one does not go into your inventory. It does not fall on the ground. It ceases to exist. So, there was a moment where I stood on an empty highway watching 4 rusted doors and 1 broken tailgate blink out of reality, one after another, and then I had a van with 5 brand new doors and 30-year-old everything else. It looked like a beggar in a wedding dress, body covered, face very much not. Then I raked out the fire and collected 100 units of wood ash and 5 charcoal, fed the ash and my night demon serum into the bench, and pulled out 32 doses of anti-night demon serum. I did not list them, not one, not at any price, because right then, nobody had met a night demon yet. Nobody was infected, nobody was scared. A cure is worth exactly nothing until somebody in the dark starts coughing, and then it is worth everything they own. I put all 32 in the ring and drove on. There was a gray wolf lying next to a bronze chest a few kilometers up. That was not a fight, and I am not going to pretend it was. I still had invincibility, and that wolf did not, so what happened over the next 20 minutes was less combat and more a very rude cardio session. I chased that animal in circles around a treasure chest until its legs quit. 300 rounds, no winner, one very tired wolf. 5 iron, 5 packs of instant noodles, 40 liters of gasoline. At 7:30, the screen threw up a warning I did not love. Night is approaching. I turned the headlights on and they cast about 10 meters. 10. On a 16-lane road in a world with things in it that hunt by smell. While I waited for the dark, I did some housekeeping in the trading mall, which is where I discovered the single funniest economy in the universe. I listed the duck's tail, just the tail, 1 iron ingot, sold instantly. Then I listed the duck bones. The bones, somebody bought the bones for another iron ingot. If you put that duck carcass in front of a beggar on Earth, he would chase you for 10 blocks with a stick. Then a Jong Horan messaged again. A blueprint for a 40-liter fuel tank, 2 iron ingots, and a Walkman for 1 bottle of water. I took the deal before finishing the sentence because a music player in a world with no music is the closest thing to a soul you can buy. It had 1 song on it. 1. Hail. What's the matter with your head? Yeah, that is the entire lyrical content. Some man shouting about a head over a beat forever on loop in the middle of an empty grassland at night. I listened to it 12 times. By the 4th time, I had accepted it. By the 7th, I was nodding. By the 11th, I was doing a small seated dance behind the wheel of a wooling minivan while a wolf howled somewhere in the dark, and I said out loud to nobody, "Damn, there's only 1 song," in the exact tone of a man who has already decided it is his favorite song. I slept in the driver's seat with the doors locked. I dreamed I was in a palace, marble everywhere. Amina sitting on my left, Zainab on my right. The bed was enormous, and it was slowly, luxuriously giving way beneath me, and I remember thinking in the dream that this was a design flaw, but I was willing to let it go. Then I woke up, and the scratching noise was still happening. 2 gray wolves had their claws in my brand new car door, dragging them down the metal. Slowly, I had installed that door 6 hours earlier. I have never left a vehicle faster. 2 swings, 2 wolves, 20 units of wolf meat, 2 hides, 4 gold. 4:30 in the morning, standing barefoot on a highway in my socks, furious about paintwork. The chat channel was awake too. A bison just rammed 2 holes in my car door. There is something breathing on my window and I am not looking. Woke up to find a maggot peeing on my face. I don't want to talk about it. Solidarity, brothers. Truly. The cheetah I found at dawn was asleep beside the next bronze chest, which by then I was starting to consider a personal service. Axe to the head, finished on the ground, 30 leopard meat, 1 pelt, 5 gold. And then I opened that chest and my entire life changed. 5 beef burgers, 5 units of plastic, and a vehicle-mounted condenser, premium grade, not standard, premium. 2 full tiers above the standard model, which I know because the system listed the standard model right underneath as a comparison, the way a car dealer shows you the base trim to make you feel wealthy. What it does is simple. It pulls water out of the air, 30 to 50 liters a day, every day, forever, for free. I sat in the driver's seat, holding it in both hands, and did the only math that mattered. There were 31,000 people on this road. Almost none of them had water. All of them had materials, blueprints, and a deep personal interest in not dying. And I had a machine that made rain. Wouldn't I be the king of pure water? I mounted it on the roof. A tank swelled up out of the housing, a hose fed down through the frame into the cabin, and after about a minute, the first drop hit the bottom of the container with a sound I would happily have set as my ringtone. Then I listed water again. 15 units of plastic a bottle. A man named Zhang Wei bought both bottles inside 4 seconds, which set off a small war in the public channel, most of it aimed at a woman called Li Huan, who had apparently been mid-negotiation. I'll make sure you regret it when we meet again. Mom, he bought water. This is a functioning market. I needed somewhere to put 50 liters a day, and I said so out loud in the chat, and 7 minutes later, Zhang Haorain sent me a blueprint for a 50-liter tank plus 20 units of plastic, which was the 3rd time in 2 days that person had handed me the exact thing I needed at the exact moment I needed it. I sat there staring at the message. Shell. System, I said, the way you're running this game, I really don't feel involved. Because there is no way a stranger on a road with 31,000 desperate people happens to have my next upgrade in their pocket every single time. Nobody is that helpful. Nobody is that timely. Could this be an NPC the system assigned to me, just quietly handing me whatever I need next? That was the theory I formed on day 2. I want you to remember that I formed it because I held onto it for a very long time with total confidence in the face of an enormous amount of evidence. Meanwhile, a woman called Chen Feng sent me a photograph of herself and the message, "You can do whatever you want with me when we meet. Save the image. Block the friend," completed in one smooth motion. At 8 o'clock the next morning, the sky spoke to everybody at once. "Congratulations on successfully completing your first day. You will now lose your invincible state. The first catastrophe, Eternal Night, will begin in 2 days." I watched the online counter in the corner of the screen. 31,251, 31,240. 40 people died in the first 30 seconds of being mortal. 6. They had spent their invincibility standing somewhere they should not have been standing, and the clock ran out on them mid-sentence. The chat channel came apart. "I want to be invincible. Let me be invincible for just one more day. Please, I'm still in the forest. How do I get out of the forest?" I checked my ammunition, put the axe on the passenger seat where I could reach it, and started the engine. 2 days until Eternal Night. First order of business as a mortal was to stop looking like one. I wrapped my shins in cloth scraps until they were thick enough to eat a bite, and I forged 2 spare axes, because throwing your only weapon at something is a plan that works exactly once. Then I found a lion sitting on a silver chest, not next to it, on it. Front paws crossed, tail flicking, watching me get out of the van with the specific patience of an animal that has done this before and has notes. Before the desert eagle, all creatures are equal. Lions are no exception. I threw the first axe and missed by a meter, which was humbling. The second one caught it in the head and it came off that chest like a landslide with teeth. And I did the thing you are never supposed to do, which is fall over on purpose. I went backwards into the grass and it went over the top of me, and I put the barrel under its jaw and pulled. The head came apart. Half of it landed on my face. I lay there in the grass, deaf, covered in lion, and started laughing because the recoil had nearly broken my wrist and I did not care. Axes are for wolves. Only a pistol works. 100 lion meat, 1 lion skin, 1 lion penis, which the system described as strengthening yang energy. Thank you, system. 8 gold. Its mate came out of the grass about 90 seconds later, which is a nice way of saying I nearly died standing over a corpse admiring my own work. Both hands on the gun. 5 meters, 2 rounds. Female. What a pity. No little dandan for anybody today. The silver chest was worth all of it. 25 kilos of rice, a toilet paper blueprint, an automotive frame blueprint, standard grade, 200 iron, and a Tang Dynasty sword, excellent grade, 2 refined iron and 1 wood, reusable forever. Let me speak about the toilet paper for a moment because I think people underestimate it. Up to that point in this world, my options had been leaves or dirt clods. That morning, on the shoulder of an infinite highway, humanity and I quietly rejoined each other. We can now say I had successfully entered civilized society. Then I opened the trading mall and raised my prices. 1 bottle of water, 2 refined iron or 15 iron ingots. The chat channel went very quiet for a second and then detonated. 15. Yesterday it was 5. Xiaoming, how much water do you actually have? I feel like you're not playing the same game as us. Correct, I am not. Thank you for noticing. I sold 10 bottles in an hour. 150 iron came in, went straight into the workbench, and came out as a standard automotive frame. And my van stopped being a joke. The body came up silver and clean. The interior went from split leather and exposed wire to something a human being could sit in without a tetanus booster. Zhang Wei tried to haggle. 12 iron, come on brother, 12. No bargaining, I said, and went back to work, and 20 minutes later, he paid 2 refined iron for 1 bottle without another word. 45 units of plastic. Later, I had the 40-liter tank on the van, and 2 refined iron plus 1 wood. Later, I had the sword, 72 centimeters of black blade, patterned scabbard, and a balance that made my hand feel smarter than it is. I tested it on an iron ingot on the ground. It went 3 centimeters into solid iron, and came out without a mark on the edge. If I'd had this an hour ago, those lions would have cost me nothing but sweat. The boar came at me that afternoon, and boars, I learned, do not stop. 3 axes, 2 missed, the third bounced off its shoulder, and then 400 pounds of angry pork was coming at my knees. I stepped out of the line and opened it from the neck to the tailbone with 1 draw. The system called it comparable to the great named blades of the martial arts novels. I called it the best purchase of my life. 100 pork, 1 pigskin, 6 gold. And an aftertaste of shame because when I looked at the corpse properly, it was an old sow. Sorry, Grandma. That chest had 5 green apples, 500 grams of salt, and a car USB flash drive advertised as containing a variety of classic videos. Reader, they were not classics. I plugged it in. I watched about 11 seconds. Then I unplugged it, put it in the space ring, and said out loud, if we keep looking at this van is not getting driven today, and drove away from myself at 70 kilometers an hour. By the third day, my prices had gone up again, and that is when the road decided I was a moral problem. New rule, I announced: 1 bottle of water, 1 blueprint, any blueprint. A man named Wu Lei stood up in the public channel and made himself the voice of the people. We're all Chinese here. Since you have resources, you should share them with us. Xiao Ming is a troublemaker in our region. Let's boycott him together. And it worked. That is the part I want you to understand. 200 people piled in behind him inside a minute. They ran an actual vote on whether to strip me of my citizenship of the Dragon Kingdom, which is a thing you can apparently do with a chat channel and enough free time. Someone claiming to be from the Dragon Security Bureau gave a speech about how those who got rich first have a duty to help those who came after. The whole road agreed I was a parasite, loudly, with numbers. In the middle of it, Zhang Haoran sent me a private message and a tire blueprint, the only blueprint that person had. I think you're a really nice person. Sent while the entire population of a world was voting me out of my own nationality. I sat with that one for a second. Then I posted my reply in the public channel. You guys are amazing and you have a lot of guts. I hope you keep it up. Effective immediately, the price is 3 blueprints or 50 sets of basic materials for 500 milliliters of water. And then, because I am not a good person, I posted a video, 10 seconds. My hand, a bottle of mineral water, and a patch of grass on the shoulder of the highway, being slowly and lovingly watered. The channel made a sound I could feel through the screen. Let's strike him dead with lightning. I did not need to do that. Business-wise, it was a mistake. I did it anyway, and I would do it again. The road kept producing 5 iron and 5 rubber, and a gearbox blueprint out of one chest, a leopard cat and a car engine blueprint out of the next. At 7:30 that evening, I boiled instant noodles with pheasant legs in them on a workbench-powered rice cooker in a van with air conditioning, and I photographed it and put it in the public channel. Ja, the noodles smell so good. Xiao Ming, just eat it, choke on it, die. We are all dying of thirst, and you're cooking with water. Hehe, I replied. I love seeing you guys want to hit me and not being able to. I'm going to build a racing team to take down Xiao Ming. Anyone want to join? +1, +2, plus me. Honestly, it sounded like fun. Zhang Xia sent a private apology that night. Long one, very sincere. Said she'd been caught up in the mood. Said she respected me really. I still prefer your previous rebellious, headstrong self, I wrote back, and blocked her. And then I sold out my entire water tank. Every single one of them. The boycott people, the vote people, the Dragon Security Bureau speech guy. They condemned me in public with their whole chest and then messaged me privately with their material inventories and their pleas and their brother. And water was up to 100 units of material a bottle by midnight. And the next morning, the same people were back in the public channel saying that when they finally found me, they'd rob me and feed me to the lions. That is the road. That is all of it, right there. Everybody hates the man with the water until they need water, and then they hate him more because now they owe him. I built a run-flat tire, then an engine, then a gearbox. Consumption dropped to 6.5 liters per 100. Then, because I had 2 iron, 10 rubber, 10 cloth, and 5 hides doing nothing, I built a massage chair and installed it where the middle bench used to be. The windows were still 8 holes with the wind coming through, so I cut up my spare clothes and hung curtains. A van with a massage chair, air conditioning, a rice cooker, and curtains made from a dead man's trousers. Hell of a machine. Zhang Haoran bought water that night at the same price as everyone else without a single word of complaint, and then sent a friend request. I can't sleep. I want to chat with someone. Are you a boy or a girl? Male. How old are you? I fell asleep mid-conversation and snored directly into the channel. He woke me up 90 minutes later by breathing on the screen, not the monkey. I didn't have the monkey yet. I mean the man who bought 17 bottles of water from me over 4 days and then messaged at 3 in the morning to ask if I would consider a partnership. What kind of partnership? I have a location. Silver chest confirmed. No beast on it. I can't reach it. My tires are gone. You drive out. We split it. Where? He gave me coordinates that were 400 kilometers backwards down a road that only goes forward. Brother, I typed. There is no chest there. You want me to drive backwards for 8 hours through a region that's already been stripped and arrive with an empty tank in the dark at a place where you and your friends will be standing. There was a long pause. Was it that obvious? You spelled chest wrong twice in a message where you spelled ambush correctly. Damn. I gave him a bottle of water for free, not out of kindness. Out of respect for a man who takes a professional loss with grace, and because I wanted every person reading that channel to see me do it and to spend the rest of the week trying to work out what it meant. That's the thing about a public channel with 30,000 people on it. Everything you do in there is an advertisement for something. The next morning, I did a full inventory and I did it exactly once, and then I never did it again where anyone could see, because the fastest way to get robbed on that road was to publish a list of what you had. What I had was this: water for 100 days, meat for 200, a pistol, a rifle blueprint I couldn't build yet, a sword that cut iron, and 32 doses of a cure nobody knew they needed. What I did not have was a single person on that road who would come if I called. I thought about that for about 4 seconds and then went to find something to kill. The grassland delivered. It always delivered. A hyena pack first, 6 of them, which taught me a genuinely valuable lesson about ammunition, which is that 4 bullets and a sword beats 6 bullets every time, and that a desert eagle is a bad answer to anything moving faster than you can turn. Then a wild horse, which I want to talk about because the wild horse nearly killed me, and I have never told anybody the details. It was standing next to a bronze chest, and it was not aggressive. It watched me get out of the van. It watched me walk over. It kept eating, so I ignored it and put my hands on the chest, and a horse hoof came through the space where my head had just been and took the lid off that chest and a section of my hair with it. I went over backwards into the grass and it came down again with both front legs. I got the gun up and fired twice, and the second one worked, and I lay there for a long time afterward with my heart going like a bad engine. That is the only time in that entire world that something came within about 10 centimeters of ending it, and it was not a night demon or a mutant or an armed man. It was a horse, a herbivore, something whose entire strategy in life is eating grass and leaving. I sold the horse meat for 140 materials, and I did not enjoy a single one of them. The chest had a car radio blueprint in it, and I built it, and discovered that the radio in that world receives exactly one thing, which is a channel of static with something underneath the static that occasionally sounds like a person counting. I listened to it for 2 hours, and then I took it out and threw it into the grass, some things you don't need at the start of a permanent night. Trade picked up as the region got desperate, and I want to describe one transaction properly because it explains that whole economy better than anything else I could tell you. A man wanted a bottle of water. He had no materials, no blueprints, no fuel. What he had was a photograph of his daughter, which he offered me seriously as an item of value because he had run out of everything else and could not conceive of arriving at a trade with nothing in his hands. I gave him 3 bottles and told him to keep the photograph. Then he asked what I wanted in exchange, and I told him nothing, and he refused flatly. He would not accept it. We went back and forth for 14 minutes, and in the end, he sold me a used lighter for 3 bottles of water at a price we both knew was insane, and he drove away satisfied. I have thought about that more than about most of the people I killed. A man will die of thirst before he'll take a gift because a gift means somebody has him, and out there being had is the same as being dead, just slower. I raised my prices again the next day. Note the order of those 2 events. Then the region's first proper war broke out, and I sold ammunition to both sides. It was Wu Lei's convoy against a group calling itself Whitebeard over a resource area with 3 silver chests in it, and it lasted 9 hours and killed 60 people. I was 200 kilometers away with a rice cooker on and the Walkman playing its one song, and I sold 400 armor-piercing rounds to Wu Lei's quartermaster and 350 to Whitebeard's at the same price, from the same batch, made in the same workbench. Whitebeard lost. Wu Lei put a victory speech in the public channel about protecting the common survivor. Somebody asked in that thread where the ammunition had come from. Nobody answered. Both quartermasters were online. Neither one typed a word. That is the day I understood what I actually was on that road. Not the strongest, not even close, not then. I was the place where the ammunition came from, and as long as that stayed true, both sides of every war had a reason to keep me alive. I built the Tang sword a second time that week and sold the first one for 210 materials, which is when I learned the most profitable rule I ever found in that world. A reusable blueprint isn't a tool, it's a printing press. I could not tell anybody that. If a single person on that road had worked out that my healing ointment blueprint was reusable and infinite rather than a limited stock I was rationing, my prices would have collapsed in an hour. So I sold ointment in batches of 10 and let everyone assume that each batch cost me something. And when people asked why I couldn't make more, I told them my materials were running low. I had 300 units of raw meat in a space ring at the time. Every single person in that channel believed I was rationing. Some of them thanked me for it. A roar woke me around 2 in the morning, and the windshield went to spiderweb in front of my face. There was a lion standing on my hood with one paw still against the glass, and glass, it turns out, is a suggestion. I went over the seats into the back, cracked the rear window 10 centimeters, and put a round through its ribs from 2 meters. Then I sat in the dark counting bullets. 34 left. If the night is going to send me one of those every few hours, 34 is not a number. 34 is a countdown. The morning report was worse than the lion. On line 30,040, 1,230 people had died in a single day, and 500 of them had died between sunset and sunrise. So naturally, I posted my breakfast. Good morning, everyone. It feels so good to be able to wash my face and brush my teeth with water. I even washed an apple with water to eat. Xiaoming, how are you still alive? I want to drink your face washing water. I'm serious. Name a price. That one I actually considered. Zhang Haran message. Good morning. Good morning. 20. Huh? Didn't you ask how old I was? Note that this is the level of conversational skill I was working with, and it still went better than most of my Earth relationships. 2 tigers were sitting on the next silver chest, and when they roared together, the small animals in the grass around them just fell over, dead from the sound. I got out of the van and I gave them the finger, both of them. Right hand, left hand, a nice slow presentation. Come here. The first one came. I shot it out of the air at the top of its jump. The second one did not come. The second one stood in the grass with its front legs shaking, and then, because a tiger's brain has no protocol for what it had just watched, it walked toward me anyway, slowly, like a man walking to his own disciplinary hearing. I shot it too. 200 tiger meat, 1 tiger penis, 2 tiger skins, 20 gold, and 2 more bullets gone, which hurt more than it should have. That chest gave me a full set of barbecue seasoning, a fruit wine blueprint, 40 liters of good grade gasoline, and an explosion-proof car window blueprint, 100 pieces of broken glass, and 10 rubber per window. 8 uses. So I bought glass. Buying broken glass, any glass, paying in water. Xiaoming, go to hell. And then they brought me glass all morning. People drove to meet me carrying handfuls of their own smashed windows, and by noon I had 300 pieces, and every opening in that van was armored and tinted one way. I could see out, nobody could see in. Then I set up a folding situation on the shoulder of the road, put tiger skewers on a grill with cumin and chili, opened a bottle of fruit cider, and posted the photograph. Enjoying life, loving life. Picnic check-in today. The response was the single most beautiful thing I have ever read on a screen, and I will not be reproducing most of it. My favorite was a man who typed in full sincerity, "Don't call me Xiaoming anymore, call me Wu Jinxi instead," which is a joke about my name that took me 4 seconds and hurt for 4 hours. Then I sold the skewers, 10 materials each, sold out. The wine did not move at all. Nobody on a road full of dying people wanted 10 milliliters of pear cider for 10 materials, and I respect that. That was market feedback, and I took it graciously. I ate the tiger penis that night because I am a curious man and the system said strengthening. I would like to formally retract my curiosity. There was a pillar supporting the sky in that van for approximately 4 hours. It refused to bow its head for a long, long time. I did not sleep. I drove instead through the dark at 80 kilometers an hour in a state of considerable personal architecture. Meanwhile, Wu Lei had a new project. He'd found a small condenser, 10 liters a day, and on the strength of 10 liters a day, he announced the formation of a convoy with himself at the head of it and offered 1 free liter of water per day to every single person who joined him. Hundreds signed up inside an hour. I know what he said in private afterward because his lieutenant sold me the conversation for 2 doses of ointment about a week later, and it is worth every material. Am I out of my mind? Why would we give away the water we worked so hard for, keep enough for our own drinking, and sell the rest at Xiaoming's price? At Xiaoming's price. The man built an entire political movement around hating my prices and then used them as a pricing benchmark. I've never been so flattered by a competitor. Zhang Haran warned me about him that afternoon. They formed a convoy. They might be targeting you. The bison I met an hour later was the size of a delivery truck and standing on a silver chest, axe to the face, sword across the neck, 300 bison meat, 1 hide, 2 horns, 8 gold, and 10 liters of milk. I sat on the highway with a container of fresh milk in my hands and laughed like a child at a birthday party. You do not understand what a glass of milk means until the only liquid you have had in 5 days is something you condensed out of the air. That silver chest gave me a high-powered flashlight, a hidearm guard blueprint, a car headlight blueprint, and the thing that made me more money than water ever did, healing ointment, 50 units of raw meat, 30 wood ash, 10 wood, reusable, 10 doses per batch. I had at that moment roughly 1,700 units of raw meat in my space ring from various animals who had made poor decisions. I wrote the advertisement myself, and I stand by every word. Bitten by a dog, kicked by a donkey, rooted up by a pig. Apply this ointment for immediate relief and a pleasant cooling sensation. 3 blueprints or 100 basic materials. Nobody bit for 20 minutes. Then a man came into the public channel bleeding. Dad, Grandpa, please, I got scratched by a tiger. My chest is still open. I've got 85 materials and 5 tiger hides. That's everything I own. I took the hides and knocked 20 materials off the price. As for the remaining 15 materials, go and gather them. I have faith in you. The ointment burned like acid and itched like insanity and stopped the bleeding in 90 seconds, and the man posted a photograph of his own closed wound in the public channel with a review. Healing ointment personally tested, effective, 5 stars. All 10 doses were gone in 4 minutes. I made another batch. Those went too. I put an air conditioning unit in the van with the proceeds and started a second. You have a responsibility. I let him run for about 6 minutes. He was really building. There were speeches, there was a hashtag, then I typed this. Sigh, it was my fault. I shouldn't have shown you the healing ointment at all. I should have just watched you die. From now on, I'm not selling it anymore. As for the blueprints, I threw them in the bushes on the right side of the road. Anyone who wants them can go and find them. I have never seen a mob turn that fast. Xiaoming, I was wrong. I was really, really wrong. Please take me back. Brother Ming, ignore that man. He doesn't speak for us. I will stand up for Xiaoming. I will personally have Xiaoming's child. Wu Lei went silent for 17 hours. Somewhere out there, I know for a fact that a meaningful number of adult human beings spent that afternoon searching roadside shrubbery for blueprints that had never existed, and that thought has kept me warm on cold nights ever since. The elephant was the biggest thing I had seen alive. It was standing over a gold chest, and I felt it before I saw it because the ground under my boots was moving in time with its feet. 3 rounds. 1 in the eye, 1 in the head, 1 to finish. 1,000 units of high-quality elephant meat, which the system said strengthens the body. 1 elephant whip. 2 tusks, a hide. 20 gold, and the gold chest gave me the thing that changed the shape of my entire war. 15 units of gunpowder, 1 fine steel, 60 liters of good gasoline, and an armor-piercing round blueprint. 1 gunpowder plus 1 iron reusable, output 50 rounds. 50 rounds per gunpowder. I fed it 15 times. 750 bullets came out of that workbench, and with the 29 I had left, I was sitting on 779 rounds. And every single time, I find gunpowder again for the rest of my life. That number goes up by 50. The ammunition problem was over permanently. On day 5, I spent the last half hour before dark grilling elephant meat on the shoulder of the highway with the sun going down orange across 1,000 kilometers of empty grass, and I did that on purpose, and I want to be honest about why. The system had told us the world was going dark in 2 days. That was day 2. 29,999 people online, and every one of them spent that night finding out what they had traded away. Because here is what happened over those first 4 days. I sold water cheap and steady, and people paid me in whatever they had lying around that they did not understand the value of yet. Torches, lighters, flashlights, batteries. I was wondering why the water was so cheap. I thought I got a bargain. Torches went to 10 materials each in the public market that night. There were none for sale. Zhang Haoran bought 2 doses of ointment and then asked very carefully if we could chat for a while that evening. Sure, I typed, but there's a fee, 1 iron ingot per hour. Never mind then. 7 wolves surrounded the van around 3 in the morning. I killed 2 through the gap in the rear window, and then something interesting happened, which is that the other 5 stopped. They looked at their dead, then 2 of them took a body in their jaws, and the whole pack dragged it off into the grass and did not come back. So these things can be afraid. Good. That's a lever. At 8 o'clock the next morning, the sky went out. Warning. Disaster has struck. From today onward, the world will be plunged into eternal night. All vehicles will now be reset. The distances between vehicles will be adjusted, and the chance of encountering other vehicles will increase. The sun did not set. It simply stopped being there, the way a light goes when someone flips a switch in another room, and then the whole world was a headlight cone 10 meters long on a black road, and the grassland on either side became a place that things came out of. Online, 28,123. 1,876 people had died in one night. Somebody posted a photograph, a night demon's face pressed flat against a window from the outside, black fluid running off its teeth onto the glass, eyes like 2 coals, like a vengeful ghost that had just climbed up out of the underworld and found a car to lean on. That was when I listed the anti-night demon serum, 2 good grade blueprints, or 20 high-level materials per dose. The chat channel went absolutely silent, not angry silent, thinking silent, and then one person typed the sentence I'd been waiting 5 days for somebody to type. Brother, your focus is strange. Shouldn't you be asking why he already has antiviral serum on the first morning of the disaster? Nobody answered him. Everybody was already in my inbox. I sold serum all morning. I also sold the leftover broth from my instant noodles, 500 milliliters for 10 iron ingots, and it went in under a minute. It was soup with old chicken fat in it, 10 iron ingots. Somewhere in there, Wule was mid-speech about hoarding and had to stop talking to go and buy 4 doses, and then somebody put a video in the channel and the whole road stopped moving. A man in a car, interior light on, both windows broken. He is sitting in the driver's seat hugging a fuel can against his chest, and behind him, in the frame, there are hands coming through the gap. He is very calm. That is the part I still think about. He is completely calm. My wife's name is Li Shufin. If any of you are lucky enough to meet her, please pass on a message. She's the love of my life, but I can no longer be with her. The hands get closer. Also, everyone needs to remember this. The resource areas are very dangerous. Never, ever go in alone. He got that out. In the last 20 seconds of his life, with those things climbing through his window, that man spent his breath on a safety warning for strangers. Then he said one more thing. Damn it, if only I could have a cigarette, just one. Let me have one puff and I could stand up and take them all down. And he flicked the lighter into the fuel can. The channel did not say anything for a long time. Then it said everything at once, all of it furious, all of it useless. I sat in a silver van with a working air conditioner and a massage chair and 180 liters of water, and I watched that video twice, and I did not make a single joke because there was nothing in it to make a joke out of. Here's the ugly part. Within about a day, nobody talked about him. Nobody remembered his name. Nobody remembered Li Shufin's name either, and I include myself in the failure for a while there. People aren't cruel. People are just afraid, and fear has a very short memory. It only holds one thing at a time, and that thing is always yourself. I wrote her name down on the back of the toilet paper blueprint. I made myself leather armor out of bison hide that night, high collar, iron plates over the heart. Then I drove into the dark, 4 days on this road, and I had not met one single other human being face to face. The system had just told us it was fixing that. The first car I saw was as broken as mine had been on day 1. No upgrades, no new doors. A man leaning against it, waving both arms in my headlights, grinning like we were old friends. Guoliang. That's what he called himself. Brother, there's a chest 100 meters off the road there, but there's a pack of wolves on it. 2 of us can take it. Half each, 2 items apiece. Deal? I said my name was Chen Fei. In the world of martial arts, everybody keeps a second account. Chen Fei, great. So you know the Ma family triangle killing technique, right? Looks like you don't play games. I did not play games. I did, however, notice the dagger he had tucked into the back of his belt when he turned, and I noticed that he kept trying to close the distance between us as we walked, and I noticed that every time I opened the gap back to 4 meters, his shoulders moved. He thought about it the whole way. I know because he said so afterwards. In a way, his eyes kept going to my van, then my flashlight, then my sword. He was not planning a robbery. He had already finished planning it and was now doing the walk. 4 wolves came at us in the grass. I put mine down in 2 movements. He took most of a minute on his and came out of it breathing hard. And then he looked at my blade properly for the first time. That knife of yours is incredible. Want to sell it? 20 refined iron. He laughed like I'd told a joke. I had not. I let him open the chest, partly generosity, mostly curiosity, and the curiosity paid because when he opened it, there was no gold light at all, just a lid coming up in the dark. Looks like not everybody has my talent for unpacking boxes. 10 iron, 10 cream puffs, 2 refined iron, and 1 blueprint. Whoa, he said, it's a blueprint for high quality equipment. It was a fishing rod, standard grade. And in the half second I spent processing the words fishing rod, he put the dagger into my chest with both hands. There was a sound like dropping a wrench into a sink. Bison leather, iron plate, directly over the heart. His face did the most complete emotional journey I have ever watched a human face perform. Triumph, confusion, arithmetic, and then a very specific horror as he understood that he had spent his one surprise and I was still standing. I kicked him in the groin hard enough to lift him off the ground. Both of them. Definitely both. Then I put him on the ground and finished it, and I am not going to walk you through the next part because there is nothing in it worth having. He tried to take my life for a fishing rod blueprint. He did not get up. His body did not vanish. That is the thing that stayed with me. Animals dissolve into loot on this road. People just lie there. 10 cloth scraps, an iron dagger, an iron axe, a flashlight, 4 gold. From his car, 5 iron, 6 empty plastic bottles, 298 milliliters of water, a half-eaten piece of bread, some blueprints, 13 liters of fuel, a standard car chassis, and one item I had never seen before, scrap car core. 1. Can be used for vehicle upgrades. I stood on a black highway holding it and worked out what it meant, and I did not enjoy the answer. If cores come out of cars and cars belong to people, then from here on, upgrading your vehicle means taking the heart out of someone else's. The system had not created a road. It had created a machine for turning 31,000 people into parts. I left the water and the half-eaten bread on the shoulder. I don't know why. Somebody would come along. Then I fed the core into my van and watched it go from discarded to standard. Resource detection out to 200 meters. Consumption down to 5.5 liters. Top speed 120. Hesitating over that for even 1 second would have been an insult to my life and to the van. I got some of the rest of that night secondhand much later, and it belongs here. While I was learning what a car core was, Zhang Haoran was 200 kilometers away getting out of a vehicle in a long black dress with a curved saber in one hand, which I am told looked less like survival and more like something walking out of an old film. 2 men attached themselves immediately, helpful, very friendly. Walked her all the way to a gold chest, and then the black bear that was sitting on it stood up, and the two of them discovered urgent business elsewhere. Sigh, one of them said, once they were far enough away. That woman's dead by now. Let's go see what's in her car. They could not get into her car. It was upgraded and locked, and they spent half an hour failing at it in the dark, which is where they still were when somebody spoke behind them. What are you doing next to my car? She had a bear skin across her shoulders and an armful of loot, and a wound across her chest that had gone through the dress, and neither of those men had ever in their lives had a worse thought than the one they had next. She threw the loot in the first one's face, cut, then thrust straight through the chest. The second one turned to run and took the blade in the back from 4 meters, thrown. Then she sat down against her own wheel and put healing ointment on her ribs. Ointment she had bought from me 2 days earlier at full price without complaining once. But I didn't know any of that yet. That night I was busy with 7 night demons who had decided my van was a shellfish. They came in the middle of what should have been daytime because daytime was over now. All 7 piled onto the vehicle at once, clawing at armored glass, and I sat inside listening to them work. Then I cracked the window on the side where none of them were and shouted, "Here it is." They all came around, and I stabbed them through the gap one at a time as they arrived, like a man opening a very energetic delivery of melons. 7 serums, 35 cloth, 70 gold, 400 wood ash, and 20 charcoal from the fire I built afterwards, which is enough anti-serum to supply a small town. My private messages hit 999 plus and stayed there. Chung Horan messaged too, buying ointment and serum like always, and added a warning at the end. Be careful of the other people you meet on the road. They're more dangerous than anything else out there on the grassland. Right on time. Exactly the thing I needed to hear on exactly the day I needed to hear it from the person who had already handed me a rice cooker, a fuel tank, a water tank, a tire, and a Walkman. It has to be an NPC, I said out loud to an empty van. They even know how to pretend to care about people. Then I typed, "You must be a woman, right?" "No, I'm amazing." Fair enough. Online, 23,654, 6,345 people gone in half a day. The night demons did not do that. The night demons did maybe a quarter of it. Because once the system started pushing our vehicles closer together, somebody on that road did the arithmetic out loud in the public channel, and it spread like fire in dry grass. Why risk your life on a treasure chest with a lion on it when the man in the next lane already opened his? Gangs formed inside 6 hours. The Hailong racing team, the Whitebeard thieves, the Straw Hat pirates, who I assume had a wonderful time, and the peace team, run by a man named Liu Guohua, which was the most frightening one because it had the nicest name. I got 11 invitations that day and refused all 4, and the reasoning is not complicated. Join a group and you have to explain where your water comes from. Explain where your water comes from, and you have a talent everybody wants. Have a talent everybody wants, and you are not a member. You're an asset with legs. I stayed alone and drove into the dark and found 10 night demons standing in a ring around a gold chest 200 meters off the road, which by then was just Tuesday. 7 rounds, 3 finished with the blade, a fine knife, 15 iron ore, 15 gunpowder, which is 750 more bullets, a fine steel, a car storage locker, good grade, 400 cubic meters, and 1 item with no name, unknown gem. Description: Please drip your blood onto the gemstone. You might be pleasantly surprised. Now, I want to say for the record that I understood how this looked. A mystery rock in a monster's nest asking politely for blood is not usually the beginning of a happy story. But my sword was covered in night demon fluid, so I used the clean dagger, opened my palm, and let it drip. The stone drank it. Not absorbed, drank, like a pump switching on. The blood came out of me in a line, and my hand went numb to the wrist, and then my vision started closing in from the edges, and I sat down hard on the grass. You're not going to suck me to death, are you? The stone kept going, so I put my palm back on it. I refused to believe it. I refuse to believe a piece of junk like you can drain a grown man dry on an open road. Something inside it cracked. Then the whole shell came apart in my hands, and sitting in the pieces, blinking up at me with two enormous round eyes, was a monkey the size of a house cat with fur like spun gold. Spiritual stone monkey, mythical beast. I looked at it. It looked at me. It grabbed my thumb with one hand. Then you shall be called Sun Mihu from now on, I said. It's a pity I have no way to teach you the secret to immortality. You'll have to work that part out yourself. I gave him a liter of milk. He drank the entire liter without breathing, in one continuous motion, and when he was done, his stomach was the exact size and shape of a kiwi fruit, and he could not stand up. He waddled to my massage chair, climbed into it, turned it on, and fell asleep with all four limbs in the air. I sat there in the driver's seat, watching a golden monkey vibrate gently in a chair I had built out of rubber and wolf hide. Okay, I said. I'm a stay-at-home dad now. 6 days in a world with no sun, and the first thing that had been glad to see me was a rock. Life on the road settled into something almost pleasant after that. I shot roe deer out of the driver's window while moving, which I missed on the first attempt, and had to acknowledge out loud that we still needed practice. Mihu learned to sit on the dashboard. Mihu learned to open the cream puffs. Mihu learned that the massage chair had a high setting. Mihu also, at some point in the second night, decided that the floor behind the chair was outdoors. From now on, I told him, holding him up at eye level over the evidence, you do not poop or pee in the car. Do you understand me? Chirp, chirp. He did understand me. He also did it again on Thursday. Online was 21,513. 3,141 dead overnight. A third of everyone who had woken up in a van on that first sunny morning was gone, and the chat channel had become something I stopped reading in the evenings. People were trading people, not metaphorically. There were listings. I am not going to describe that market, and I am not going to repeat what was in it. I will tell you that I reported every one of those listings, that the system did not care, and that I made a private decision that week about who I would stop the van for and who I would not. Then a man came into the public channel, infected and begging. He had been bitten the previous night. He had maybe 15 hours. He had 8 materials to his name, and my serum cost 20. And he was typing the same message over and over with more exclamation marks each time. You can try cutting off that arm, I said, and then trading it to me for healing ointment. I meant it as a joke. It landed as one, in the sense that 800 people laughed at it, and I felt approximately nothing about the man himself, and that is a sentence about me that I am going to leave standing exactly as it is. Then Liu Guohua stepped in. He paid the man's bill in public. 6 refined iron out of his own inventory for a stranger, announced with just enough humility to make sure everybody saw it. The channel loved him for a week off that. I know what he said afterward because his own people leaked it eventually, the way they always do. 6 pieces of refined iron is enough to buy people's hearts. What a bargain. He used to be a bodyguard for somebody important on Earth. The Dragon Security Bureau credentials he kept mentioning were a costume he had picked out for himself on day 2. He messaged me 60 times that week about joining the peace team, and I blocked him, and he found a way to get one more message through. If you refuse a toast, you'll have to drink a forfeit. If we meet on the road, I will show you what happens to people who defy me. Noted. Filed. Looking forward to it. The woman standing in the middle of my headlights 2 days later was not armed. That is the first thing I checked. Hands empty, out to the sides, coat too thin for the wind, and her vehicle sitting dark on the shoulder 40 meters back with the driver's door hanging open. Please, I just need fuel, 10 liters. I'll pay whatever you want. I knew the face. Everybody knew the face. Lin Wei had been on approximately every screen in the country 18 months earlier, which on Earth meant that people threw money at her, and here meant that 100 million fans had converted overnight into 0 liters of gasoline. No, I said, not happening. I was not being clever. I did not have a plan. I said no because saying no is free and yes is not, and I put the van in gear. Then 2 vehicles came out of the dark and boxed us both in. 4 men got out, and 2 of them had machetes with dried blood on them, and what they started doing to her in the middle of that road took about 4 seconds to become obvious. I got out of the van. Hey, you two, if you want to have fun, go back to your own cars and get out of my way. They turned around. One of them looked at my van, then at me, then back at my van, and started explaining what was going to happen to it. He got half a sentence. The Desert Eagle is not a subtle instrument. The first one went down before the sound reached the grass. The second one made it 3 steps. The third dropped to his knees in front of my headlights and started hitting his forehead against the asphalt hard enough that I could hear it, begging with his whole body. You wanted to have some fun with my woman? I said, then I finished it. I'm not proud of the line. I said it because it was the shortest way to make the fourth one run, and it worked, and he ran, and I did not chase him. Linwei was still on the ground, holding her coat closed with both hands. I threw her a bag from the space ring, grassland clothes, thick ones, the kind I'd made out of hides. Then I filled her tank with 20 liters of gasoline while she got changed behind her own car, and when she came back around, I was already at my workbench. Here's the deal, I said, and put a Tang Dynasty sword in her hands. This cost me 2 refined iron and takes 90 seconds, and I have plenty of both. You get the blade, you get the fuel, you get supplies, and you get me teaching you how to use all of it. In exchange, you drive where I drive and you fight when I fight. That's the whole arrangement. Nothing else is included, and nothing else is going to be asked for. She stood there holding a sword worth more than her car and waited for the rest of it. There wasn't any rest of it. I just watched what the rest of it looks like, lying on the road behind her with the engine still running. This is just a deal between us, I said. Get in your car. I also gave her the parts I'd stripped off the 4 vehicles, minus the cores. The cores are mine. I am generous, not stupid. Her first lesson came up 19 kilometers later in the form of 2 tigers on a silver chest. I shot the first one, then I put a round through the second one's front leg and turned around and pointed at it. Go and kill that tiger. She did not move. And when I looked at her properly, I understood something I had not thought about once in 6 days. On the earth she came from, the worst thing that woman had ever done to another living creature was step on an ant by accident. She had never killed a chicken. Most people haven't. Most people have gone their entire lives with other people doing all of their killing for them, quietly, somewhere else, and calling it groceries. Don't be afraid, I said. I'm right here watching, but if you want to live in this world, you have to get past the thing in your own head first. Nobody can do that part for you. She walked up to a wounded tiger with a sword in both hands, screamed loud enough to hurt my ears, and split its skull. Then she threw up. Then she did it again the next day without screaming. And when she opened that silver chest, it lit up. Silver light, not gold, but not nothing either, which meant that whatever else was true about Lin Wei, the system had given her a talent too. 10 abalone, an engine blueprint, a tire blueprint, and a Glock, normal grade, 17 rounds. I'll hold on to this pistol for you, I said, taking it, and I'll give it back when we part ways. She looked at me for a long moment and then, to her enormous credit, laughed. I grilled premium elephant meat for her that night and abalone, and she ate like someone coming back from a long way away. How about I just stay with you from now on? There's absolutely no need for that. You're a terrible person. I'm a well-supplied person. Eat your abalone. She stayed 4 days, and I learned more about how the rest of that road lived in those 4 days than in the 2 weeks before them. Lin Wei had not opened a resource chest until she met me. Not one. 14 days on that highway, and every single thing in her vehicle had been traded for, begged for, or handed over by somebody who recognized her face and wanted something. So what happens when the last person who recognizes you dies? I hadn't got that far. You should, because I've done the arithmetic on this road, and there are 2 ways to eat out here. You take, or you make. Everything else is just waiting in a nicer chair. She started opening chests herself after that. First one, a hyena on it, and she got out of the vehicle and stood there for about 40 seconds before she moved, and I did not help, and she killed it and came back with her hands shaking and a car headlight blueprint. Second one was a boar, and she took it in 8 seconds. Third one was a night demon, and she made a mistake, and it opened up the outside of her left arm from shoulder to elbow. I got there with the ointment before she'd finished swearing. That's 20 materials, I said while I was putting it on. You're charging me? Full price, and here's the reason, so listen while it stings. The second I start giving you things, you start needing me, and the day I'm not there, you die holding a wound you can't treat because you never bought your own ointment. So yes, 20 materials, pay me. She paid me. 2 days later, she bought 40 doses at full price without being told to, and stored them across 3 different compartments in case one got looted. That's the only useful thing I ever taught anybody in that world, and it took a night demon and a scar to do it. The other thing I learned in those 4 days is what a face like hers costs. Somebody in the public channel put together that Lin Wei was alive. Just that, alive in Region 7, driving a black hatchback, and inside 4 hours, there were 9 separate posts from men explaining what they were owed by her personally on the basis of having watched her films. Not one of them had met her. One of them had a spreadsheet. She read all of it. I watched her read all of it on my screen in my van at 2 in the morning with a chicken leg going cold in her hand. On Earth, I had 4 bodyguard, she said. I complained about it. I said it made me feel like a package. And now I've got a man who charges me 20 materials for medicine. Best deal you've ever had. No commission, no contract, and I've never once asked you to smile for a photograph. She laughed at that. Then she cried for about 90 seconds, quietly, with her back to me, and then she stopped and asked what was for breakfast, and I did not mention it again, then or ever. You get one of those with a person. If you spend it on being clever, you don't get another. The nights got worse that week, and everybody's did. The system had started pushing vehicles closer together, which meant that when a pack found one van, it found 4. There were 2 nights running where I sat inside armored glass listening to somebody die 300 meters away over an open channel because people had started leaving their channels open when they got scared, which is the single worst instinct in a world with things that hunt by sound. The second night, a woman got about 4 minutes of transmission out before it stopped, and most of it was her talking to somebody who was not there. I did not drive out to her. She was 300 meters into the grass on foot, in the dark, in a region with a confirmed pack, and going out there would have been suicide with a nice speech attached to it. Lin Wei asked me the next morning whether I'd considered it for about 6 seconds, and then I stopped considering it. You want the honest version? Out here, going out there, is how 2 people die instead of 1. That's not bravery. That's arithmetic with a hero costume on. You practice that one? A bit. That is the answer I gave her, and it is completely true, and I still think about that woman's voice. The chat channel invented a new industry that week, and the industry was information. People started selling coordinates, where the chests were, where the packs were, which convoy was on which stretch of road, who had died, and therefore whose vehicle was sitting unattended with the doors locked and a core inside it. That last one turned into a whole profession inside about 3 days. Scavengers who did nothing but follow the death reports and arrive at the corpse of somebody else's night. I bought from all of them and sold to none of them, which is how I ended up with a map in my head of an entire region while everybody else had a map of their own headlights. Wu Lei tried to buy me out around then, not threaten, buy. His offer was genuinely good, which surprised me. 20% of everything his convoy gathered, permanent seat at his table, 4 vehicles as personal escort, and he would publicly retract every word he had said about me in the boycott. And in exchange, your ointment blueprint and your serum blueprint, not exclusive, just copies. I sat with that one for a real minute because it was the first sensible offer anybody had made me. Then I said no, and here is why. The blueprints were not the asset. Being the only person who had them was the asset. The moment a second workbench in that region could make anti-night demon serum, I was a man with a van, and Wu Lei was a man with a convoy, and a reason to stop paying me. You're making a mistake, he wrote. Probably, but it's my mistake and I get to keep all of it. He did not send another message for 50 days. The next one was a bounty. Lin Wei left me at the fork with the Glock and a full tank, and I have already told you about the red thread. What I did not tell you is that after she drove off, I sat in the van with the engine running for 11 minutes. Mihu wasn't there yet. Nobody was there. Just me, a stripped down interior, a Walkman with one song and a road going 2 directions. Then I turned left and I put the song on, and I drove into a region where nobody had ever heard my name. The chat channel spent the next morning explaining a new technique to everybody. Nails scattered in a line across all 16 lanes. You cannot see asphalt in eternal night until it is under your bumper, and a van doing 120 on 4 blown tires does not stop, it cartwheels. 4 cars in the last hour, somebody wrote. They aren't even robbing them. They're waiting for the fire to go out and collecting the cores. Zhang Haran messaged me around then, offering a proper weapon in exchange for ointment and serum. A goose feather saber, good quality, the real thing. I turned it down because my sword goes 3 centimeters into an iron ingot, and I have never once in my life said no to a gift with such a warm feeling in my chest. Mihu, I said, I've got 2 guns on me right now. How about we rob somebody on the road? He was sitting on the dashboard, eating sunflower seeds with both hands, and he did not even look up. Just kept cracking shells, entirely at peace. An enormous furry endorsement of whatever I wanted to do with my life. Lin Wei killed a hyena by herself that afternoon while I was still getting out of the van. I used to train with several martial arts instructors, she said, wiping the blade on the grass, for a film, 3 months, 6 days a week. For a film, it was a very serious film. I have never respected the entertainment industry more. The ambush was waiting for us 80 kilometers later, and I have to admit it was properly built. 3 vehicles nose to tail across the road with junk piled between them, and standing up out of the junk more than 20 iron spears with the points angled out toward oncoming traffic. Behind us, 2 more cars pulled across the lanes to cut the retreat. 5 men came out of the dark with machetes and spears, walking slow, taking their time, enjoying it. Textbook, genuinely well organized. Somebody there had a brain, so I got out first and spoke before any of them could. Hey guys, are you here to rob me or to assault me? You're not even going to say hello to my nice car. Are you looking down on it? There was a pause while 5 armed men processed that. Damn it, who gave you the guts to talk to us like? I shot him. The one beside him turned to run, and I put a round through his neck at 9 meters. The remaining 3 went to their knees so fast that one of them lost a shoe, and at least one of them wet himself, and all 3 began talking at the same time. We're here mainly to distribute supplies, to help those in need who are passing by. Unfortunately, I said, do you know what I do for a living? They stared at me. I'm a robber. Then I told them to run 5 meters, and then on my command, I want to be honest with you about this part because I have thought about it since. I did not need to do that. 2 rounds would have finished it. I turned 3 men into moving targets on an empty highway because I had a student who had never shot a person, and because a lesson that costs you nothing is a lesson nobody remembers. I put the Glock in Lin Wei's hands. Open your eyes, don't look away, and don't shake. Look at them while you do it. If you can't kill, then you're the one who ends up on the road, and I won't always be standing here. It took her 4 shots to hit the first one. She got the other 2 with 1 each. Afterward, she sat on the bumper for a long time with the pistol in her lap, and then she asked the question everybody eventually asks me. How can you be this calm after killing someone? Perhaps the essence of my soul is bloodlust. That's what I said. It got a laugh out of her, which was the point. What I actually thought was this. On day 1, a man named Guo Liang put a dagger into my chest over a fishing rod blueprint, and something in me closed a door that night and has never opened it since. I still don't know whether that door is a wound or an upgrade. I still don't. The night demons changed that week too. The first one came out of the grass on all 4s, running like a cheetah, low and fast, and it dodged my first bullet by moving before I fired. It took 3 more to put it down. You scared me half to death. I told the corpse. I thought you were going to be impressive. 2 more came in behind it. Lin Wei took the first one at 60 kilometers an hour with the front of her car, which is a legitimate technique. The second one ran directly into my windscreen at full speed, bounced off armored glass, and lay in the road twitching. Mental disability. Some of them evolved claws. That one evolved commitment. Online, 21,113. Nearly 10,000 people dead in 9 days, and at least 2/3 of them died at the hands of other survivors. Not the demons, not the lions, us. Lin Wei sat in my van that night with Mihu asleep across her knees, scratching between his ears while he made a sound like a very small engine. Can we go back to Earth? I don't know, maybe the only way to find out is to keep driving until this road ends. She was quiet for a bit. If we really can go back, will you marry me? I reached over and put the back of my hand against her forehead. No fever, so why are you suddenly talking nonsense? I'm serious. Feelings are the most useless thing anyone brought into this world, I said. Let go of them and you have no weak points. Keep them and every single one of them is a handle for somebody else to grab. I believed that at the time completely. Put that on the record too. The next morning, I posted a buy order in the public channel. Purchasing car cores, 20 ordinary materials or 2 advanced materials per core. No limit on quantity. The channel understood immediately. In other words, you have to kill somebody to get one. Xiaoming, are you deliberately trying to make us fight each other? I was not trying to make them fight each other. They were already fighting each other. I was simply the first person to publish a price, and there is a difference, and I have had a long time to think about how much of a difference it actually is. The fork appeared 12 kilometers later. Side road detected. It may hold greater rewards, but the danger increases accordingly. I looked at the split for about 3 seconds. Let's part ways here. She did not argue. That's the thing about her that I underestimated for a long time. She never once argued when it mattered. I gave her the Glock and 100 rounds of armor piercing, a full tank, food for 2 weeks, and every dose of serum I could spare. She took a red thread out of her pocket, tied a strand of her own hair into it, and knotted it around my wrist. Be safe. Then I turned left, because there's an old line about that. Choose left over right, and your life will run as long as heavens. And I drove away without checking the mirror. I found out later she hit the steering wheel hard enough to bruise her hand. The left road was better immediately. Chests every 10 or 20 kilometers instead of every 50. Higher grades, more monsters on top of them, which is the same statement said twice. 20 night demons in a full circle around a gold chest, standing there in my headlights like a shareholders meeting, sword in the right hand, Desert Eagle in the left, 780 rounds in the ring, and a completely renewable supply chain. It took 7 minutes, 20 gin vegetable gift pack, which I appreciated more than I expected after 9 days of pure meat. Fine steel, 15 gunpowder, a car frame, upgrade blueprint, good grade, 400 iron ore, and a rifle, good grade AK-47. Deviation reduced 10%, weight reduced 10%, recoil reduced 10%, 40 round magazine. I was literally just worrying about ammunition capacity on the Desert Eagle, I told the sky, and you handed me a rifle. Lady Luck, you and I are going to be fine. The gunfire brought company. Everything within 2 kilometers heard 40 minutes of shooting and came to see who was doing the dying. A tiger got its front legs up onto my window frame while I was still climbing in. I put the van in gear and pulled away, and it fell off flat on its back in front of an entire audience of grassland wildlife. The king of beasts dropped on his spine in front of a crowd. That is so embarrassing. It chased me for 200 meters out of pure humiliation. I gave it one burst from the AK out the window, and then the strangest thing happened. Everything else stopped. Not because of the noise. They'd had 6 minutes of noise. They stopped because they had just watched the king of beasts die from a sound, and every animal in that grass revised its understanding of the world in the same second. I drove through the middle of them at 40 kilometers an hour, and not one of them moved. 2 hours later, the screen lit up. Resource Town detected 200 meters ahead. It contains many high-level resource chests. The dangers are several times greater. A town in a world that had been nothing but grass and asphalt for 9 days. There were 5 upgraded vans already parked outside it in front of a low black building with no windows. One of them had a small condenser on the roof, which told me exactly how they'd been eating. 5 men with machetes came over as I pulled up, smiling with their whole faces. "Brother, join up with us. Safety in numbers. Split everything 5 ways, 6 ways now." "Sorry," I said. "Not interested. You'll die alone in there. Even if it's dangerous, as long as I don't get out of the car, I can just drive through it." They kept smiling. I could hear the one at the back already talking to the others, and he was not quiet enough. And what he said was this: the second he opens a chest, he has to get out of the vehicle. And the second he's out of the vehicle, he's ours. All in the Dainawal in binding on 18,954. Zhang Haran had already been through a resource town of her own by then, took a platinum chest out of it, fought 20 mutated demons for the privilege, and picked up a scratch in the process, which is why the message came in. "I got hurt selling me serum. Did you find anything?" There was a pause of about 8 seconds. "That's your first question? You're clearly alive. You're typing. So did you find anything?" I got the serum order and a description of a platinum chest in that order, and I consider that a well-run conversation. The town sat across all 16 lanes. There was no going around it. That was the point of it. My resource detection went soft and vague the moment I passed the first building, which was the system's way of saying that in here, you find things by walking. And behind me, 5 vans. There was a 2-story villa on the left with the door standing open, black inside, quiet, like a colossal abyss beast lying down with its mouth wide, waiting for humanity to walk in under its own power. "No problem at all," I said over the local channel with tremendous warmth. "There's a chest in the building on the right. You 5 go in and find it. I'll stay out here and watch the cars. I think it's better if we all go in together. You know, what you said makes a lot of sense, but you guys go first. I'll cover the rear." "Keep it up. I believe in you guys." They went in first. They went in first because they had a plan of their own. I could hear pieces of it through a broken window, word for word. "Let's just go in first, and once we're inside, we'll find a chance to kill him." 2 men can have the same idea about a doorway, and only one of them can be right. There was a night demon behind the door of a clothing shop on the ground floor. The big one at the front dodged it beautifully and put 2 of his own teammates directly into its arms while doing so, which I want to note was excellent technique and terrible character. They found a bronze chest upstairs, 5 iron ore, 5 plastic, 1 bottle of water, and when the lid came up, there was no light at all, just a box opening in a dark room. They came back down and spread out around me in a half circle. "Hand over everything you own. Do you know why I always keep my hands at my waist?" "What? Your back hurts? Even if you..." I shot him. Then, because there were 4 left and I was in a mood, I made them an offer. "I'll ask you a question. Guess right and I let you go. What am I holding in my hand?" It's a pistol." Incorrect answer. I know. It's a Desert Eagle." Incorrect answer. "What do you mean by this? What do you mean?" The last one didn't say anything at all. He just stood there in the dark with his mouth open and no sound coming out, and I let him have 3 whole seconds to find something. Incorrect answer. The correct answer, for the record, was that I was holding a Desert Eagle. I was never going to let any of them go. I just wanted to see what a man reaches for when he's got one guess left. The town square had 2 chests in it, gold on the left, platinum on the right. I opened the platinum one first, and about 45 night demons came off the surrounding rooftops. Half of them were mutants. All of them landed at once. 7 rounds out of the Desert Eagle, 2 more taken off their feet with the sword. Then I put the AK on full auto and swept the square in a flat arc at hip height. And the thing about a rifle in a crowd is that a bullet doesn't need to find a vital spot. It just needs to open a hole that the next one can walk through. 40 seconds, 40 rounds, and the platinum chest was worth every one of them. 10 high-quality roasted meats, 10 high-quality tea cakes, an explosion-proof window upgrade, good grade, adamantite, a quality improvement scroll, perfect grade, which raises any single item 1 full tier, and a standard laser cannon. I read that one 4 times. Monstrous destructive power, 24-hour recharge. A turret slid out from under the chassis of a Wuling-based motorhome and locked into place with a sound like a bank vault. It auto-targets. It fires on voice command. It looked ridiculous. It looked like a small pony hitched to a freight wagon. I am reasonably confident I was the first person in the history of anything to mount a laser cannon on a van. Then I opened the gold chest. It was empty. Not empty as in low value. Empty. There was a slip of paper lying at the bottom, and it said in the system's cheerful little font, "It's understandable to occasionally find an empty box." I stood there in the square of a ruined town, standing on 45 corpses, blessed by Lady Luck, chosen one, the only one. Wow, I said, I'm a man favored by heaven itself. I even get empty boxes. Then I kicked it. 10 scrap cores from those 5 vans made 1 proper core, and 1 proper core got me a message I had been waiting on for 11 days. Please select vehicle upgrade direction. Sports car, sedan, pickup, off-roader, motorhome, truck, color of your choice, 12 meters long, 3 wide, 4 tall, bedroom with a double bed, bathroom with a shower and a washing machine, a separate kitchen, a lounge, a dining area, a workbench bolted into its own room, a roof that opens with a lift that takes you up through it. 15 liters per 100 kilometers, which hurt, and 400 meters of resource detection, which did not. On Earth, I could not have afforded this vehicle in 10 lifetimes. Here, it cost me 5 dead robbers and a monkey's worth of patience. Mihu had opinions about the bed. Mihu claimed the bed. Something cried on the roof that night. A woman weeping, and it got closer and louder over about 20 minutes until it was directly above my head, and someone in the public channel posted a photograph of a gray-skinned woman with a face that had gone very wrong, screaming banshee. I went out through the side door, walked 3 steps, and turned around fast. She was already coming down at me. 1 cut, 1 anti-night demon serum, and 10 gold for a creature that had been building atmosphere for half an hour. What a waste of that figure. Somewhere on the other side of the desert, Lin Wei found a supply station. It's a vending machine, essentially, run by the system, gold only, 100 item daily limit, women's kit for 20, toilet paper for 10, sanitary pads for 10, 5 grams of salt for 10, water for 20 a bottle, gasoline at 10 gold a liter. 4 men came out from behind it while she was buying, recognized her face, and got about as far as saying it out loud. She put all 4 down herself. It was not the first time she had killed. She told me later it still made her heart come up into her throat every single time, and I told her that was correct, and she should keep it. Then she bought 3,000 gold worth of salt and fuel for me on my request with my gold and charged me exactly double. I did not find that out for another 9 days. That woman took half my money on a grocery run. When I finally worked it out, I sat in the driver's seat doing math with increasing respect, and I am told that at that exact moment, 400 kilometers away, she sneezed twice on an empty highway. The next platinum chest gave me 10 premium coffee beans, an adamantite, a coffee machine blueprint, and premium night vision gear that turns 100 meters of eternal night into a gray afternoon. Now the coffee. I built the machine, ground the beans, and pulled a cup with actual latte art on top because apparently the workbench has standards. And when it went down my throat, warmth spread out from my chest into my arms, and something behind my eyes that had been slowly tightening for 20 days let go. My thinking got sharper, clearer, faster. It restores mental condition. That is a stat in this world, and nobody had known it. And I found out on the same morning that the public channel was full of people describing what 14 days of no sunrise does to a brain. I haven't slept properly in a week. Every time I close my eyes, I hear the scratching. Does anyone else keep seeing lights out on the grass that aren't there? So I wrote an advertisement. 1 sip and you're awake. 2 sips and the fatigue is gone. 3 sips and you will be completely thoroughly intoxicated with life. Zhang Haoran asked for a sample, and I poured her exactly 50 milliliters. You really don't take a loss anywhere, do you? It is das alisa for en rodin des dosme, and a prisen of the stock and sudre, it chasse for a The channel scene reaction was becoming a genre by that point. He's here again, he's got new stuff again. Big Brother is the pillar of heaven and earth. The supplies I have taken in are officially less than the supplies I have handed out. I am a farm animal. Wu Lei sent one of his people, a man called Ergo, to scout me. He also said something about me on an open channel he thought was closed, involving me, a knife, and a wolf pack, and the specific part of me he intended to distribute. I'll spare you. At midnight, the whole world turned red. Not dark red, wrong red, like looking at everything through a glass of wine. And then a moon came up over the grassland, and it was the color of an open wound, and it was the first thing in the sky any of us had seen in 14 days. The wolves that came out under it had crimson fur, not reflected light. Actually, crimson actually changed, and mutants running with them at twice the size. I put the AK through the gap in the window and worked until the magazine ran dry twice. If I had still been in a Wolling minivan with cloth curtains, that pack would have had me in pieces on the road. I sat inside 4 inches of good-grade explosion-proof glass and killed everything that touched it, and I thought about all the people out there in Day 1 vans who were hearing the same howling I was, online 14,125. Lin Wei sent me a video of about a dozen bodies she left behind her, clearly waiting for applause. I sent back a photograph of the road in front of my motorhome, and she stopped talking for a while. Liu Guohua, meanwhile, had bought coffee, not for himself, for his convoy, publicly, 1 cup each, distributed personally. Following Brother Liu was definitely the right decision. I watched a man buy 400 people's loyalty at 10 materials a cup, and I made a note in my head because that is a better return than anything I sold that week. His convoy met Wei Qiang's convoy at a junction the next day, and Wei Qiang, who has the manners of a dropped engine, refused to move. I'm eating right here. I'm not blocking your way. Liu Guohua smiled and made a joke and pulled his whole convoy around into the grass to go past, and the thing he typed to his own lieutenant afterwards is one of my favorite documents of that entire world. If I didn't need to maintain my image, I would have twisted his head off already. Nobody on that road knew who anybody had been. That's the part people never adjusted to. Your whole life, all of it, every certificate and every scar, deleted at 8 in the morning on day 1. I could have told them I was the president of America. Liu Guohua told them he was the Dragon Security Bureau. Somewhere out there, a genuine police officer was probably being called a liar for telling the truth. I was boiling braised lion head meatballs when the next 5 idiots arrived. Mihu was the size of a husky by then, and he had learned the workbench. Not learned to use it, that came later. He had learned that if you put the right things in it, ointment comes out, and he had started doing my serum batches while I cooked. Mihu, I told him, grow up fast so you can help your master slay demons and monsters. He chirped and stole a meatball. Somebody had shared a photograph of my motorhome in the public channel by then, and the channel had gone insane. Everyone else is still in a minivan, and this man is touring the world in a motorhome. Is this the chosen one of destiny? The 5 who pulled up outside had clearly read that thread and decided on an approach. Master, great master. Allow your disciples to pay their respects for your disciples. I almost lost a braised lion head meatball through my nose. Have you no shame? Roll. The tone changed with impressive speed. 50 doses of ointment and 50 serums, they said, or they'd sell my coordinates to every convoy in the region. 2 shots. The last 3 went for their weapons, and I threw them each a meatball first. Eat up, so you can get on your way. 3 shots. The public channel had a debate about it afterwards that I found genuinely interesting. Not about whether I was a monster, about why. Everyone started at the same point. Why is Xiaoming so far ahead? Nobody in that entire thread guessed talent. Every single one of them guessed I'd found something they'd missed, and every single one of them was wrong, and I have never once corrected them. The side road ended in a wall of headlights, 20+ vehicles across the lanes, steel spikes welded to the front bumpers, and more than half of them holding composite bows. Black Dragon Racing Team, run by a man named Heibiao, and if the name doesn't mean anything to you, the videos they had been publishing did. I'd watched 30 seconds of one and closed it and thought about it for a week. They sent a negotiator forward. He came at a limp, complaining about his stomach, and I later learned Heibiao had put a boot in his back to get him moving. Either you join the Black Dragon Racing Team, he recited, or this day next year will be the anniversary of your death. Then they fired. 100 arrows hit my vehicle at once, and the sound of it was like heavy rain on banana leaves, and when it stopped, there were scratches on my windows. Scratches. Haha, I said. Let me show you a magic trick. The turret came out from under the chassis. Blue lightning crawled up the housing. Two beams, each about a meter across, went out across those 20 vehicles at a shallow angle, and cars that had been solid steel 1 second earlier became an argument between physics and geometry the next. The negotiator, standing 3 meters from all of that, soiled himself where he stood. That is not a weapon, somebody in his convoy said, on an open channel in a very small voice. That is a weapon from another dimension. The survivors ran. Mihu went after them with the AK, I should explain. Mihu was a meter tall by then, and I had been teaching him to shoot for 4 days, mostly as a joke, and somewhere in there, the joke had stopped being one. The little stone monkey handled that rifle better than I did on my 3rd day. He is stronger than me, faster than me, and he has never once had to think about it. 20 scrap cores and 4 proper cores came out of that road. The public channel spent an hour theorizing. Nothing could do that unless somebody gave him a nuclear missile. So I posted. I didn't want to be so high profile. Why are you all pressing me for answers? Yes, I killed them. I wiped out the entire Black Dragon convoy. No need for thanks. Ridding the people of a scourge is simply my duty. You may show your gratitude in materials. Zhang Haran messaged privately. Black Dragon had chased her 2 days earlier and put an arrow through her rear window. Thank you. The strong are always alone. I typed back. It's the weak who need to travel in groups. I meant it as a boast. I have thought about that sentence a lot since. She sent me a present that week, and I need you to understand that I opened it in good faith. A premium grade silicone doll. 1 meter 65. Have you ever used it? I am a woman. That's what she typed, word for word. And I read it and I thought, she's making a joke about the NPC thing. And I moved on with my life. I auctioned the doll in the public channel. Brand new, high quality, feels exactly like a real person, temperature control, capable of screaming, and the description claims it promotes male secondary development, whatever that means. 10 gold, 20, 100, 200, 500. It closed at 30 units of gunpowder, 10 fine steel, and 1,000 gold coins. Brother, I typed to the winner, take it easy. The trading mall's free trial ended around then, and the system introduced a commission, 10 gold per 10 items listed, 24-hour limits. This plan actually has some conscience, I said, and then I watched the channel discover the limit. I've dumped 2,000 units of animal meat on the highway. Everyone come and grab it before the timer resets. The next supply station I found had 7 vans parked in front of it in a line, blocking the view of the machines, taking a cut from everybody who wanted to buy. 7 very hard-looking men walked over as I pulled up, and I watched their faces change as their eyes went up the side of a 12-meter armored motorhome with a laser turret slot in the underskirt. No, absolutely not. We just wanted to do a little small business here. I like businessmen, I said. Since you've already taken this place over, name your price. How could we dare do business with you? That's fine, but you'll have to move your cars forward a bit, otherwise I feel unsafe. You understand. They moved their cars. One of them suggested to his boss quietly that maybe they should follow me at a distance and see where I went. Follow my ass. Do you have any idea how many lives that man has on his hands? I'd like to point out that I never told anybody that number. They worked it out themselves from the shape of the road behind me. The laser cannon changed how people talk to me, and it took about a day for me to notice how much I disliked it. Before Black Dragon, the public channel argued with me. People called me a parasite and a hoarder and worse, and they haggled, and they organized boycotts that collapsed within 6 hours, and somebody was always writing a long post about the moral obligations of the rich. After Black Dragon, they thanked me for things. Thank you for the ointment, Brother Ming. Thank you for setting a fair price. Thank you for not killing us. That one was a real message. A man sent me that after buying serum at the same price he'd paid the week before. I preferred the boycott. At least the boycott meant they thought I was a person. The convoy started sending me tribute around then, unprompted, which is a thing I never once asked for and never once refused. Wu Lei sent 40 units of refined iron with a note describing it as a gesture of regional solidarity. Liu Guohua sent a full crate of gunpowder and a message hoping we could put past misunderstandings behind us. A convoy I had never heard of, run by a man whose name I still don't know, sent me 200 liters of premium gasoline and asked for absolutely nothing in return, ever at any point, and I checked the message 4 times looking for the ask. That was the week I understood the actual mechanism of power out there, and it is not the gun. It's that once people believe you can reach them, they start paying before you ask. The cannon fired once. The reputation fired every single day for the rest of that world. I did the math on it a month later. Black Dragon cost me 1 shot and about 9 seconds. It earned me an unsolicited tribute over the following 30 days, roughly 4 times everything I made selling water in the first 2 weeks. I still ran the shop, though. That part matters. I never once stopped selling, partly because a man with a shop is a man people need, and a man people need is harder to organize against, and partly, honestly, because I enjoyed it. There is no feeling on earth quite like listing a bottle of soup broth at a price that makes 5,000 people angry and then watching it sell in 40 seconds. The supply station crew I chased off came back 3 days later, and I want to tell you how that went because it did not go how I expected. They pulled up behind me at a distance of about 200 meters and sat there. 7 vehicles, engines running, nobody getting out. Then their leader messaged me privately, "We're not here to fight, we want to buy in." Buy into what? You sell things, we move things. There are 11,000 people spread over 400 kilometers of road who can't reach you and can't reach each other. We'll run your goods to them and take a cut. You never have to stop driving. I read that message 3 times. It was, genuinely, the best business proposal anybody made me in 3 worlds. A distribution network, 7 vehicles that would carry my ointment to people who would otherwise die of a scratch in exchange for a percentage, run by men who had already learned exactly what happened when they tried the other approach. I turned it down, not because it was a bad idea, because the moment I have 7 vehicles carrying my goods, I have 7 vehicles that know where I am, 7 vehicles I have to protect, and 7 men whose loyalty is exactly as long as their next payment. Why not? He asked, and he actually sounded hurt. Because I'd have to trust you. Well, fair enough. They drove off and set up their own operation buying and reselling other people's goods. And it worked. And about 2 weeks later, somebody killed all 7 of them for their inventory. I have no way of knowing whether that would have happened if they'd been under my name. I've decided not to think about it too hard. Mihu grew about a foot that week. I mention it because I did not notice it happening. He went from something I could hold in one hand to something that could open the refrigerator, and I only registered it when I found him sitting in the driver's seat with both hands on the wheel, making engine noises with his mouth. Down. He looked at me. I said down. He turned the wheel slowly, deliberately, while maintaining eye contact. Mihu. Vroom. He also worked out the coffee machine, which was a mistake on everybody's part. Mihu on coffee is a natural disaster with opinions. He reorganized my entire storage locker at 4 in the morning by color and then presented it to me with enormous pride, and I could not find a single thing in that vehicle for 2 days. The other thing that happened that week is that I started teaching him to shoot, and I want to explain why, because it was not sentiment. I had a rifle, a pistol, a sword, and a cannon, and exactly 1 pair of hands. Every fight I had ever been in came down to how fast I could switch between 2 of those things. And sitting on my massage chair eating sunflower seeds was a mythical beast with the reaction speed of something that eats birds out of the air. The first time I put the AK in his hands, he fired the whole magazine into the sky in about 2 seconds and then sat down hard from the recoil. The 4th time, he put 9 of 40 rounds into a target at 60 meters. The 11th time, he put 38 of 40 into a target at 150, and I stopped laughing and started reorganizing my entire understanding of what was living in my van. He never had to think about lead, not once. He does not calculate where a moving thing will be. He simply knows, the way you know where your own hand is. I have watched that monkey shoot a night demon out of a full sprint at 400 meters while holding a banana. Mihu, I told him around then, grow up fast and help your master slay demons and monsters. He chirped, and then he went and got the banana because he had heard the word master and correctly identified it as the part of the sentence that involved snacks. I want to record one more thing from that stretch of road, and it isn't funny. I passed a vehicle on the shoulder about 100 kilometers before the fog. Doors closed, windows intact, upgraded frame, good tires, no damage anywhere. The person inside had run out of water. There was nothing wrong with that car. It could have driven another 300 kilometers. They had simply reached the point on that road where thirst arrives before the next chest does, and they had locked the doors and sat in the driver's seat and waited, because outside there were things with claws, and inside there was at least a chair. I collected the core because I am not stupid, but I sat in my own driver's seat afterward with 180 liters of condensed water in a tank over my head, and I thought about the first afternoon on that road. 2 bottles at 5 iron ingots, and 31,000 people called me a monster for it. Every single person who bought water from me at any price is still alive to hate me for it. That's not a defense. I know exactly what I am. It's just the only true thing I have to say about it. The fog came up out of the ground about 400 kilometers later, and it was red. Visibility, 10 meters. And the things walking around in it were night demons that had gone rotten, faces crawling, moving slower, and hitting harder. Zhang Haran was in it before I was, and she fought her way through and messaged me a warning while she was still doing it. I went in at full throttle, vehicle. Here is the thing nobody tells you about vehicle grade. Those demons abandoned the cars they were already tearing open and came at my motorhome instead because it was the biggest and shiniest thing in the fog, and they hit an excellent grade vehicle doing 110 kilometers an hour. They came apart like paper. I did not slow down once. I drove a road straight through the middle of them and out the other side, and about 6 different people filmed it from inside their own vehicles. That is so violent. He didn't even brake. He didn't even brake. Online, 10,121. Out of 31,251, 200 demons were standing around the next platinum chest, so I spent 9 minutes and most of a magazine and got 80 liters of premium gasoline, an adamantite, a premium window upgrade, and a superior Desert Eagle blueprint with 20% less deviation, 20% less recoil, and a 15-round magazine. And then Lin Wei walked out of the fog, covered in blood, staggering, left arm hanging. Xiaoming, save me! Xiaoming, save me! Same intonation, same 4 words, again and again. I shot her from 2 meters and then took the head off with the sword. The body on the ground was an old woman with gray skin and no eyes. Yupo, creatures whose true appearance has never been recorded. They transform into whatever shape already lives inside the mind of the person looking at them, which is an interesting fact about that particular morning that I have chosen not to examine. Do you think I've never watched cartoons? I asked the corpse. You think you can get me with an illusion? And honestly, if you're going to transform into something reliable, turn into a blueprint. A blueprint would have worked. The corpse collapsed into red fog before I could collect it. You're not even going to leave me anything? What am I supposed to collect? Sure. The second platinum in that fog gave me another 80 liters of premium fuel, an adamantite, a premium air conditioner, a premium fuel tank, and a premium Barrett. 20% lighter, 20% less recoil, 30-round magazine, night optics, and a note in the description saying that even high-end vehicles cannot defend against it. I pointed it at Mihu as a joke, and every hair on that monkey stood straight up. 3 convoys had stacked up at the edge of the fog by then, 50 vehicles or more, and none of them would go in first. Whoever leads eats the ambushes, so everyone behind can see. Nobody's willing to burn themselves to light the way for other people. They eventually agreed to rotate. I sold my scouting data, 20 high-grade materials for a full map of where the fog thinned and where the pack sat. Liu Gohua bought it, and then Liu Gohua published the whole thing in the public channel for free, under his own name. Captain Liu, you're our savior. Brother Liu thinks about everybody. 20 materials for 400 people's gratitude. That man understood the only currency on that road that I never learned to mint, and I have made my peace with it, mostly. I was 2 days into the fog when I said, out loud and to nobody, I wish you could drive. Chirp, chirp. I looked at the monkey. He was already climbing into the driver's seat. He pulled the belt across himself and buckled it, which he had learned by watching me, and put both hands on the wheel at 10 and 2, which he had also learned by watching me, and looked at me with an expression of enormous dignity. You've been doing it for this long. Even a dog could learn it. Naturally, I, the king, can do it too. Hold the wheel firmly. Don't swerve. Steady, steady. Watch that one. Run it over. Run it over. He turned his head and gave me a look I have received from exactly one other creature in my life, which was a driving instructor in 2019. Master, it's very noisy in here. Please stop chanting. I'll drive properly. Then Zhang Horan found the thing making the fog. She sent me 30 seconds of footage, and in it there is a humanoid shape the size of a mountain, standing in red mist, with the mist pouring out of its own skin in slow columns. As she filmed, it took a step, and a full-grown mutated night demon went under its foot and stopped existing in a way I will not describe. She reversed through 360 degrees and ran. Then she transferred me everything she owned, all of it, fuel, materials, blueprints, ammunition, gold, her entire inventory, in one enormous batch with a note. I'll give you all my supplies, otherwise they'll all be wasted when I die. I sat there looking at a shipment big enough to run a small convoy and thought with total sincerity, what a rich woman. If I didn't have Golden Legend, I don't think I'd be worth this much. Then I typed back, if you're still alive when I get there, consider all this the payment for your life. If you're dead when I get there, consider it payment for avenging you. And I turned the motorhome around. I want to be very clear that this was not romantic. On this road, the system only ever pushes you forward. Everything behind you is picked clean. Every chest is open. Every town is empty. Driving backwards for a day and a night is the single stupidest thing a survivor can do, economically. And I did it anyway. And I told myself for the entire drive that it was because she owed me money. I used the perfect quality improvement scroll on the laser cannon on the way, standard to good, recharge cut from 24 hours to 12. Then I parked my motorhome sideways across all 16 lanes and messaged her. I've parked in the middle of the road. Keep to the right when you get here so you don't crash into me. So I stopped the car, what are you doing? It's right behind me. You'll find out soon enough. Her headlights came out of the fog first. Then the mountain came out behind them. Fire! 2 beams a meter across went up into the red. The sound it made was not a roar. It was lower than that, and it came through the floor of the vehicle and into my teeth. And then something the size of a building fell out of the fog and hit the asphalt hard enough to bounce a 12-meter motorhome off its suspension. I put 30 rounds of Barrett into the fog where it landed, reloaded, 30 more. Then 2 more magazines for my own peace of mind. The collection took an hour and I had to walk across the inside of that thing to do it, and I threw up twice on the way. Whatever else the system gives you, it does not give you a stronger stomach, 100 gunpowder, 100 fine steel, a perfect grade vehicle refrigerator, 1,000 liters, a perfect grade condenser, 50 to 100 liters a day, a perfect Tang Dynasty sword, a perfect suit of armor, and 100,000 gold coins. The armor was dark red plating with a full visor, and it fit like it had been poured on. Mihu wanted to test it by shooting me in the chest with the AK, and I had to physically take the rifle off him. I'm afraid of dying, okay? It aimed at my head instead. Shiwayo-san, don't hit the head, it'll make the monkey stupid. He wasn't smart. To his buys and they must go in iron to cheat with she's and Bedakan was and a car door opened 40 meters up the road, and I met Jung Haran for the first time. 18 days of messages, rice cooker, fuel tank, water tank, tire, Walkman, saber offer, silicone doll, and about 200 warnings. She was, and I am reporting this as neutrally as I am able, a beauty that could topple kingdoms. I stood there in perfect grade armor with the visor up and did not say anything for a noticeable period of time. Have you seen enough? It looks great. Then Mihu came around the side of the vehicle and stopped dead because sitting on her shoulder was a monkey, a smaller one, pale gold, called Kiki. I have never seen a mythical beast lose its composure that fast. I think I'm in love. Is that a female monkey? No, it's a beautiful female monkey. And Kiki from the shoulder chirped back, you are handsome too. Zhang Haoran and I stood 4 meters apart on a fog road with 2 monkeys flirting between us, and neither of our faces moved at all. I gave her space ring back with 200 liters of gasoline still in it. Keep the rest as my reward for saving you. You're keeping most of it. Yes, come inside. There's a shower. You wouldn't be plotting something, would you? If you offered yourself to me right now, it would still be the least you could do. Dream on. She came aboard an hour later with no weapons on her. I noticed. She noticed me noticing. If we weren't both careful people, she said, we'd both already be dead. She used the shower for a long time. I made lunch, which I am qualified to do, because before all of this, I was a cook, also a security guard, a waiter, a flyer distributor, and briefly the owner of a shop that went under in 4 months. My boss withheld my wages, so I quit. That was 3 weeks and 1 apocalypse ago. Don't worry, I told her, putting the plate down. It isn't poisoned. Both monkeys already tested it for you. Mihu ate with chopsticks, actual chopsticks held correctly. Kiki ate with her face directly in the bowl, and Mihu kept glancing at her and then at his own chopsticks, and then quietly put them down and used his hands. Are you any good at cooking? She asked. So, maybe top 3 in the world. That's the first meal I ate across a table from another human being since the world ended. Safe zone ahead. Hope City. Entry, 1,000 gold coins per person. Use of force or destruction inside the safe zone is strictly prohibited. I had 100,000 gold in my pocket from a dead mountain, so I paid for both of us and drove in past a gate into the first place in 19 days where nothing wanted to eat me. A robot waiter called Xiaoguang took our order. I spent 1,000 gold on 1 table of food, and I regret nothing because I had been living on grilled meat and instant noodles for nearly 3 weeks, and that was, without exaggeration, the best meal of my entire life. Then I looked at the vending machines along the wall. Ordinary material, 2 gold. Advanced material, 20 gold. No rare materials at all. Car repair kit, 100 gold. Limit 100 per person per day. Good grade engine, 2,000. Good grade chassis, 1,500. I sat very still for about 4 seconds while the shape of it assembled itself in my head. Then I bought my 100 repair kits. Then I gave Zhang Haran 10,000 gold and had her buy her 100 repair kits. Then I listed repair kits in the public channel at 300 gold. Engines at 4,000. You bought them for 100, she said. And I'm a businessman. You're a robber with a receipt. Businessmen value profit over sentiment. She wanted a motorhome of her own, so she borrowed cores and 1,000 iron ingots from me, and I set the interest at 5 times. 5 times. Or you could become my carriage attendant wife instead, and we could settle it that way. I'll take the 5 times. I was joking. I'll still take the 5 times. She got a small motorhome out of it. Nice one. Not as good as mine. Then she asked the question that had been sitting under all of it. The convoy's behind us. You've taken most of the gold in the region. How are any of them going to afford the entry fee? That's clearly their problem. I'm already inside. Xiaoming. If they don't have enough gold to enter the city, they're welcome to exchange their materials with me for some. She put her fork down. You want them to buy their own money back from you? Yes. I don't think she'd ever met anyone quite like me before. I choose to take that as a compliment. The convoys arrived that evening, and it took them about 40 minutes to see the price stickers on the vending machines, and then to see my listings and the difference between the two numbers. This is a scam. This is simply a scam. Liu Guohua, to his enormous credit, held his own people back. Nobody forced you to buy anything, he told them, reasonably publicly, while privately advising his lieutenants to wait and let somebody else deal with me first. Wei Qiang was not that patient. Wei Qiang came and hammered on the side of my motorhome with the butt of a rifle. So I went up through the roof. Perfect grade, dark red armor, visor down, standing on top of a 12-meter vehicle above a crowd of about 600 people. Stop knocking, it's annoying, you know? And then, because they had all come this far, I gave them a speech. How many of you have clean hands? Go on. Which of you has never killed anybody? Which of you hasn't got the blood of your own countrymen on you? Half of you are driving cars you took off the people who used to own them. Nobody said anything. And now here you all are, standing on the moral high ground like saints. It's crowded up there. Should we move the Latian giant Buddha out of the way so you've all got somewhere to sit? Somebody laughed. I heard it. He tried to take it back immediately. So what are you actually angry about? You're not angry that I'm charging too much. You're angry that I'm better at this than you are. That's all this is. Every single one of you is standing there in a state of completely impotent rage. Then I opened a space ring and dumped 10,000 gold coins over the side. It came down like rain on that crowd, and it made a sound like a slot machine paying out for 17 straight seconds, and 600 people who had been calling me a parasite 30 seconds earlier went onto their hands and knees on the pavement. Mine. These are all mine. Get off my hand. Who the hell just touched my backside? Wei Qiang stood in the middle of it, screaming at his own men to stand up. Not one of them looked at him, and that was when somebody in the back of the crowd shot an arrow at me. The safe zone caught it. Gold light closed around that arrow in mid-air, stopped it dead, turned it around, and fired it back as a spear of gold light that took the archer's head off at 40 meters. The crowd went absolutely silent. Huh, I said. This safe zone is interesting. Lin Wei found us at dinner. She stood at the end of the table, looking at the two of us, then at the plates, then back. What? Have I come at a bad time? Did I interrupt you flirting with your sister here? No, you've come at exactly the right time. The food's genuinely good. You should try it. So in your eyes, I'm only fit to eat your leftovers. A robot called Jerry took 10 gold coins from me for the answer to a single question about the hotel floor plan, and when I complained, he beeped at me with visible joy. Our hotel does not accept complaints in any form. Outside in the street, a few hundred people were chanting my name in a way that was not celebratory. Xiaoming, pay us back. Xiaoming, pay us back. I walked straight through the middle of them with a woman on each side of me, and they opened up like a curtain. Later, upstairs, I looked at both of them and asked the obvious question. So which of you is staying tonight? Or both? I'm flexible. I have to go back and take care of Kiki. Hey, goodbye. They left at the same time, at the same speed, without discussing it. Chigmihu, looks like you're the only one left to keep me company. The monkey covered his own backside with both hands, walked into the driver's compartment, and locked the door from the inside. At 8 in the morning, it was 42 degrees inside the city. Warning, the real disaster will begin in 30 minutes. I spent every gold coin I had left in 20 minutes flat. 300 repair kits, 300 liters of fuel, every piece of fruit in the machines. Both of them begged space in my 1,000-liter refrigerator, and I charged both of them for it, and I regret nothing. Teleportation initiated. The survivors of 10 highway regions have been merged. You have entered the Kavada Desert, online, 54,545, and the very first thing that happened in that new chat channel was 10 regions comparing notes. Wait, your death rate is half of ours. Someone in our region had anti-night demon serum on literally the first morning of the disaster. Someone in ours cleared the blood fog, the whole fog. He shot the source. Hold on, is somebody in your region cheating? Was that entire highway built for his father? 54,000 people, and inside 6 minutes, there was already a thread about me. The desert was 48 degrees at dawn, and the sand had a spider in it 8 legs wide, each leg a meter long, with antennae longer than its body, 1 round through the head. High-quality spider legs, said the system. Who on earth is eating those? The platinum chest under it had a premium frame, a premium healing ointment blueprint, a good-grade space ring at 1,000 cubic meters, and a premium ice cream machine. My priorities were what they were. I built the ice cream machine first, milk from a bison I killed on another world, blueberries from a Hope City vending machine, and a device device that made a noise while working that I'm not going to attempt to describe. Mihu took one mouthful, and his entire face folded inward like a paper bag, and he sat there rigid with his eyes watering. Then he drank 3 cups in a row. I posted the photograph. Who is this guy? Are you even here to survive? This is the chosen one of our region. The game designer's personal friend. We're here to survive. He's here on vacation. 200 ordinary materials, 15 advanced, or 3 rare per serving. That's robbery. Because I have what you don't have. If you want it, buy it. If you don't want it, don't be jealous. I sold 400 servings of ice cream in a desert that afternoon. The desert did something to that channel that eternal night never managed. Night was frightening. 54,000 people in 50-degree heat with no shade was something else entirely. And by the 3rd day, the tone had gone somewhere I'd never seen it go. My air conditioning failed at noon. I've been lying on the floor of my car for 6 hours. I can't feel my hands. Does anyone know if you can drink coolant? Serious question. I'm serious. Nobody drink coolant. How much water does a person need per day, actually? Like the real number. I posted the real number with the temperature adjustment and told them to stop moving during the middle of the day and to bury their food containers in the sand at night because the sand goes cold. I did not charge for that, and I charge for absolutely everything else, and that the reason I gave that particular information away is that a dead customer buys nothing, and I had 400 servings of ice cream to move. But I gave it away, and about 9,000 people read it, and I know for a fact that at least some of them are alive because of it. Then I sold them the ice cream. The other thing the desert did was expose exactly how many people had built their entire survival strategy around not needing to make decisions. There was a man who spent 4 days following a convoy at a distance of 2 kilometers without ever asking to join, on the theory that if he stayed close enough, whatever they scared up, he could scavenge. It worked beautifully until the convoy turned north at a fork and he followed them for 6 hours before realizing they had stopped for the night and he had driven past them in the dark. He posted about it. He was very calm about it. I have followed the wrong headlights for 400 kilometers. I have 60 liters of fuel. Does anyone know where I am? Nobody knew where he was. He described what he could see, and it was sand. I flew him coordinates from my own resource map, the nearest station, 90 kilometers, and told him to drive at night with the lights off and the engine at 40. He made it. He messaged me 2 weeks later from a completely different region, having become a moderately successful trader in scorpion glands. He offered me 20% of his business. I told him to keep it and to stop following people. The lizards were the real problem out there, and one of them deserves describing properly. Desert monitor lizards, 6 meters, black scale, and they hunt by burying themselves under about 30 centimeters of sand with only the nostrils out, which means that in that entire desert, there was no such thing as flat, empty ground. Every dune I looked at might have had 4 of them in it. The first one came up under my front axle at 90 kilometers an hour and lifted a 12-meter motorhome by the nose. I came off the driver's seat, went into the windscreen, came back down onto the dash, and the vehicle landed on its wheels in a way that I am told by physics should not have happened. The lizard was already turning. I put the Barrett out the side window and shot it 4 times before I got my breath back. Then I sat there for a bit. Bing Bing would have had something to say about my blood pressure, I said to a monkey I had not yet met a robot with. He was not listening. He was upside down in the passenger footwell with a cup of coffee on his chest, having been thrown there, and he was drinking it from that position out of principle. I built the lizard scale armor after the 4th one, which is the one that pulled a wheel off. That's when I read the aggression modifier, and that's when I understood the trade I had made. Better armor, twice as many lizards. The system on that world was constantly doing that to me, and I never once turned it down, and I want you to understand why. Because every single thing that wanted to kill me was also a resource. That's the whole logic of that place. The lizards came for the armor, and the armor came from the lizards, and the loop ran hotter every week, and I was the only person out there who realized that the correct move was to make the loop run as hot as possible. Everybody else was trying to be left alone. I was trying to be found. The sandstorm gave me 2 days locked inside a vehicle with a monkey, and I used them the way anybody would, which is to say, I did 4 hours of shooting drills, cooked 19 meals, and then completely lost my mind. Mihu demanded the television. We had one by then, out of a resource chest, along with the USB drive I mentioned earlier and a small collection of recovered media, and what Mihu wanted was the nature documentary. Specifically, he wanted the segment about the primates, which he had watched 40 times and which he watched with an expression of intense professional evaluation, occasionally chirping corrections at the screen. You know they can't hear you. He gestured at the television with both hands. This one is doing it wrong. That's a baboon? Wrong. He also smoked, drank fruit wine when I wasn't watching, and had begun making eyes at a photograph in a magazine we'd found in a supply station. He smokes, he drinks, and he chases women, a perfectly good mythical beast. At this rate, he's going to end up a charlatan with a stall. On the second night of that storm, the wind hit hard enough that the whole vehicle rocked on its suspension, and something outside made a noise that was not the wind, and both of us went completely still and stayed still for about 4 minutes. Then it passed. Mihu got up, walked over, and sat down against my leg with the rifle across his knees, facing the door, and stayed there until morning. I want to note for the record that neither of us mentioned it afterward. The other thing that happened in that storm is that I finally counted, not materials, people. I went back through my own transaction log, which the system keeps whether you want it to or not, and I counted the number of individual human beings I had sold something to since the first morning on that highway, 4,109. Then I counted the ones I'd killed. I'm not going to give you that number. I will tell you that I had assumed going in that it was somewhere around 40, and that I was wrong by a factor I found genuinely unpleasant, and that I sat in a rocking vehicle in a sandstorm and looked at both numbers side by side for a long time. Then I closed the log and made dinner. That is what I did about it. I closed the log and made dinner, and the next morning I killed 3 men from 400 meters for planning an ambush over an open channel, and I made a joke about it while I did. You don't get to be the man with the water and the man with clean hands. Those are two different roads out of the same starting position, and I picked mine on about day 6. I just want it written down somewhere that I knew the number. A man stepped out in front of my motorhome that afternoon, holding a revolver sideways. Get out. Having a gun is fucking amazing, isn't it? Why don't you open your dog eyes and have a look at what's pointing at you from the back of my carriage? He looked. A golden monkey, a meter tall, was leaning out of my rear window with a premium Barrett across the sill and one eye on the optic. Barbarette, I'll play a game with you too. I'm going to count to 3. If you can drive away before I finish, I'll let you go. I got to 2. The 10th ring, chirped Mihu, extremely pleased with himself. Zhang Haoran sent me 61 perfect desert monitor lizard scales that week, plus 20 broken ones, and I looked at the brakes for a while. Clean, single stroke, straight through, armored scale. That woman is genuinely frightening, and I say that with affection. I made armor out of them, and then read the finished item description. Aggression of desert monitor lizards toward the wearer plus 100%, so it's a hate magnet. I made a suit of armor that doubles the number of 2-ton lizards that want to personally know me. I wore it anyway because the defense number was very good and because I have never in my life been able to leave a thing unfinished. The scorpion I found the next day was 2 meters across and gave me high quality scorpion venom, which I put in the refrigerator and thought about. The platinum chest behind it gave me a premium tire, a premium door, a set of goggles, and a perfect electric grid. Perfect grade. Description: the current is sufficient to kill a top-tier adult elephant. I tested it on a piece of raw meat. The meat produced black smoke and then became charcoal in under 2 seconds. Mahu, why don't you give it a try? He shrieked from the far end of the motorhome. There is always some demon plotting to harm this monkey king. The insects came the following night. Not a swarm, a tide, black across the whole desert floor from horizon to horizon. Scorpions and spiders and things without names, moving as one surface. Zhang Haoran drove out of it and told me she'd been crushing them under her wheels for 6 kilometers, and they kept coming. Mihu, go outside and lure some of those monsters over here so we can take a look at them. Why do I have to lure the monsters? You're a divine beast, aren't you? He went out, stood on the roof, screamed insults into the dark in monkey, and came back inside at a speed I did not know he possessed. The tide arrived about 8 seconds later and covered my vehicle completely. Total darkness in the windows, the sound of a million legs on armored glass. I turned on the grid. Here is what I learned that night about insects. When the front ranks started convulsing, the ones behind them did not stop. They climbed over, and the ones behind those saw a whole crowd of their friends vibrating enthusiastically in one spot and concluded that something wonderful was happening there and joined in. 1 tells 10, 10 tell 100. I collected gland sacks for 90 minutes and got over 100 of them, which is 100 batches of premium healing ointment. Not 998, I wrote in the listing. Not 648. Rock bottom price, today only. Damn it, I run into salesmen in every world. Zhang Haran asked to buy ointment on credit that night, and I said yes, and she said this. Counting this time, you've saved my life twice. It really wouldn't be right if I didn't repay you with my body. There was a pause on my end of that conversation, a real one. Then I typed, you'd better clear your outstanding debts first before you start thinking about repaying me with your body. Otherwise, I'm operating at a loss. She stopped answering for 11 minutes. I found out much later that in those 50 minutes, she had gone through an entire emotional arc, and that the phrase she used to describe it when she finally told me was, the image collapsed. The sandstorm hit 2 days later and put everybody in their vehicles for 48 hours, which is how I ended up watching 3 men named Gao Ming and associates plan an assault on my motorhome over an open channel using terminology from a video game. Okay, so it's just like PUBG. You pull the aggro, I peek from the left, and I'll count to 3. Are you sure? On the Chinese server, I'd usually trust me. I'm the king of guns. I guarantee I'll get a headshot before the enemy can even fire. I sat in a chair drinking coffee, listening to this, genuinely puzzled. Are they using each other as bait? Is that the plan? They're using each other as sitting ducks and discussing it out loud on a channel I'm subscribed to? The king of guns got about 4 meters from cover. Gao Ming ran. I opened the roof and took him at 410 meters with the Barrett. Sayonara. He was carrying a second perfect grade quality improvement scroll, which is the kind of thing that makes me believe in a benevolent universe, and a perfect vehicle antenna that adds 1,000 meters to resource detection. 400 meters became 1,400. Everyone else on that road had 400. Somewhere out past the storm, a woman named Sun Mei was having a much worse week than me. She'd been run off the road, shot out, and robbed down to the frame by 2 men who left her with nothing but the clothes she was wearing, and they were still standing over her when my headlights came up over the dune. They tried to talk me out of the vehicle. Friendly. Come out, brother. Plenty here for 3. She looked at me, and then she made a decision that told me everything about who she was going to become. Boss, don't believe him. He's going to kill you and take your car. She sold out the man standing next to her instantly to a stranger for nothing but a chance. I shot him. Then she came toward my door with her arms out and her voice going soft, offering the only thing she thought she had left, and I did not let her finish the sentence. Get out of here before I decide to kill you too. She stared at me. Instead of relying on other people, I said, become stronger yourself. Then I stripped the dead man's car for parts and drove away, and I left her standing in a desert with nothing. I've been asked since whether I regret that. The honest answer is that I have thought about it more than almost anything else I did in that world, and I still don't know. And the reason I still don't know is what she did next. She reported me to Wei Qiang, not the truth, a story built carefully with details in it about what I'd supposedly done to her and to a convoy that never existed. And Wei Qiang, who had been looking for a reason since Hope City, put a bounty in the public channel. 500 advanced materials for my coordinates. And if anybody can bring me his head, that man becomes second in command of my racing team. Then he blocked her immediately without paying her anything. Wei Qiang, she said, to an empty desert. We'll see. The next chest I opened was a new class entirely. Diamond, 12% ordinary materials, 67% high grade, 20% rare, 0.9% legendary, and 0.1% empty. You've even brought probability theory into it now, I told the system. I hope you're not planning to follow the example of a certain gaming company. 32 dessert monitor lizards were sitting on it. That took a while. 10 herbal essences, legendary grade, a mystic iron with the description, please do not use this to hit people, it can easily kill them, which I found charming, and a blueprint, legendary spirit calming incense cigarette. I made 250 of them. The smoke was thick and silky with a herbal edge to it, and it cleared my head better than the coffee did, and I sat on the roof of my motorhome in a sandstorm at 3 in the morning and smoked one all the way down. And I thought about a man in a burning car 20 days earlier saying that if he could just have one cigarette, one puff, he could stand up and take them all down. I did not put that in the channel. Some things aren't content. Me who stole one and lit it before I could stop him. You little rascal, you're not even a month old and you're already picking up bad habits. I took it off him. He put me on my back on the massage chair with one arm and took it back. A son stops being under his father's control the moment he grows up. Nobody tells you it happens in 3 weeks. The channel, when I listed them, lost its mind more completely than for anything else I ever sold. More than water, more than medicine. Cigarettes. I haven't smoked in 16 days. You do not understand the helplessness of driving without a cigarette. Brother Ming, I have 4 rare materials and a kidney. People filmed themselves bowing to my listing. Actual bowing, on the sand, on camera. Human beings are wonderful. Then a man named Li Jin started following me. 200 meters back, matching my speed for 4 hours on a road where you can see 1,400 meters in every direction. Wei Qiang's bounty, obviously. I reversed at him, straight back, hard, and put an iron ingot through his windscreen from 20 meters. Are you deaf? Why are you following me? He denied it beautifully for about 90 seconds and then folded completely and told me everything, including the size of the bounty, which I was pleased to learn had gone up. Then I shot out 2 of his tires, opened my refrigerator, and handed him a piece of scorpion meat. Eat this and you can leave. He ate it. He was so relieved he ate the whole thing. How was it? A bit fishy, a bit bitter, but the texture's fine. Boss, what kind of meat is that? Scorpion. I watched the word arrive. I am not going to walk you through what happened to Li Jin, and I am not going to pretend it was quick, because it wasn't. What I will tell you is what I did afterward, which was to photograph the result and post it in the public channel of 54,000 people with a caption. Whose dog is this? Remember to come and collect the body. The channel had been a market, a comedy club, and a rumor mill for 20 days straight, and it went out like a candle. Nobody typed for 4 minutes. Then, when it came back different, quieter, careful. Somebody described it afterward as a bucket of ice water going over the whole room and said the cold spread out of the chat channel and into everyone's chest like a plague. Here is why I did it, and I have never dressed this up. Being afraid of them solves nothing. The only thing that solves anything is making them afraid of me. Not annoyed, not respectful, afraid down at the base of the skull, so that when somebody mentions my coordinates in a convoy meeting, 3 people find a reason to be somewhere else. Strike once, so you never have to strike 100 times. Wei Chang understood it perfectly. I know because of what he said to his own people that night. Killing a man just kills a man. That is killing a man's spirit. He asked Liu Guohua and Wu Lei for help, and both of them declined with the same reasoning, which was that when 2 tigers fight, the wise man opens a bag of sunflower seeds. The thing about becoming the most feared person on a road is that the road stops being interesting. For about 9 days after Li Jin, nobody came near me. Not one ambush, not one negotiation, not one man stepping out into my headlights with his arms spread. Convoys changed lanes when they saw my vehicle on the horizon at 1,800 meters, which is a distance at which they could not possibly identify it, which means they had started changing lanes for any large vehicle they couldn't identify. I had made myself into a weather condition, and weather is lonely, so I went looking for things to do, and what I found was that the desert had a whole layer I'd been driving past. There were ruins under the sand, not the resource towns which the system flagged. Older things, half buried, that nothing marked and nothing guarded, and I only found the first one because Mihu would not stop chirping at a rock formation until I stopped the vehicle. It was a stairwell, concrete, going down with about 4 meters of sand poured into it. I dug it out over 6 hours with a shovel I forged specifically for the purpose, which is a sentence you should sit with, because at that point I owned a laser cannon and a legendary motorcycle, and I spent an entire evening digging a hole with a stick. At the bottom, there was a room with nothing in it. Completely empty. Concrete walls, a drain in the floor, and one door on the far side that had been welded shut from the inside. I did not open that door. I could have opened it easily, and that I stood in front of it for a while with a perfect grade sword in my hand, and that I went back up the stairs instead and filled the hole in. That is the only time in 3 worlds I walked away from something out of pure instinct, and I have never regretted it once. Mihu sulked for 2 days. The oasis was different. The oasis I understood immediately, because the oasis was a business, a ring of fruit trees around actual water, in the middle of a desert where 54,000 people were dying of heat, and Wei Chang had put 4 vehicles across the entrance and started charging. Not for the water. That's what you have to appreciate about it. He was not stupid enough to charge for the water, because charging for water gets you a war. He let everybody drink for free. He charged a toll on the way out. 500 liters of fuel and 500 units of high-grade material per vehicle, payable on departure, and by the time you were told the price, you had already parked, already drunk, already let your people out to stretch, and already spent 4 hours in the shade. You cannot undrink water. That's the whole business model. He was selling something that had already been consumed. And the fruit picking was better than the toll. He would let a convoy in, let them pick, tell them to strip the trees completely, 3,000 pieces or more, and then pay the labor in unripe fruit, 1 each, and confiscate the rest as a resource area management fee. I watched a convoy of 60 people hand over half their fuel and every piece of fruit they had picked, and then thank him. You should be polite. I'm letting you go, so say thank you. Thank you, Brother Chang. Now roll. His own explanation, which one of his surviving people gave me later in exchange for not being shot, was the most honest thing anybody in that world ever said about power. If we kill everybody, who am I supposed to rob next week? He understood correctly that a convoy is not a target. A convoy is a renewable resource. You take enough to hurt and not enough to end, and then you let them drive off and gather more, and they come back through your checkpoint in 9 days with a fresh load, because there is only one oasis. He was running a farm. The crop was people. And he waited for me there for 2 days with an ambush team, because he had heard I was coming, and because everything I have just described made him believe he understood how this worked. The 2 days I spent before that fight were, I think, the best 2 days I had in that entire world, and nothing happened in them. I cooked on the asphalt because the asphalt was hot enough to cook on. Mihu brought me a cold bottle out of the refrigerator without being asked, which he had never done before and did every day afterward. Lin Wei sent fruit. I sent back a skewer of perfect grade scorpion meat, and she reacted like I'd mailed her a house. And Where do you get this? Took it out of a monkey's mouth. Isenda spionai tien somin stensen I monkish gachao. Ispimbit emage rats peterodoson turned the means to lad trail at Shansai. Shang Haran sent me the explosive round blueprint against her dead, and I upgraded the Barrett with a second scroll, and then I forged her a perfect grade sword and gave it to her for nothing. She asked why. I told her that a person that lucky deserves to be looked after, which was a joke about her giving me a blueprint every time I needed one, and which she took as a joke, and which was about 40% true. She bought a second sword at full price 4 minutes later and gave the first one to Kiki. There is now a monkey in that world walking around with a perfect grade Tang Dynasty sword, and I need it recorded somewhere official that this was not my doing, and Mihu got a piece of Oasis fruit off Lin Wei's delivery and did the disappointed face and got a second one and then held out half of it to me. I've told you about the saliva. What I have not told you is that after I gave it back, he ate it and then sat next to me on the hot asphalt for about an hour without doing anything at all. That's the whole memory. A monkey, some meat, and an hour. Out of 3 worlds, 4,000 transactions, 2 catastrophes, and a number I will not repeat. That hour is the thing I would take back with me. Then Wei Chang arrived with 20 vehicles, and the public channel started taking bets. And it was over in about 90 seconds. And I have already told you how. One detail I left out. After the last shot, when I was walking the line collecting cores, I found a man alive under a vehicle, 19, maybe 20, no weapon on him, both legs pinned, and he had been lying there through the entire thing listening to it happen above his head. He did not beg. That's why I remember him. He looked at me and said, "Get it over with," in the flat voice of somebody who has already finished being frightened. I lifted the vehicle off him, gave him a dose of perfect ointment, pointed him at the oasis, and told him to walk. He asked why, and I said the true thing, which was, because you didn't ask me to. Just he is still alive. As far as I know, he sent me a message about 12 days later asking if I needed anybody. I told him no, and to stop asking people that. The scorpion that came out of the dune 2 days later was 10 meters long, and its tail stood over its own back like a column holding up a roof. I put the Barrett on the roof rack and worked it like a job. One eye, then the other eye, then 7 rounds into the shell at the base of the neck until something behind it gave. Then the head. 1,500 units of perfect scorpion meat, perfect venom, a gland sac. 500 gold, and the chest underneath it was the best single box of my life to that point. 320 liters of premium gasoline, 10 more herbal essences, another mystic iron, 160 liters of perfect grade gasoline, a premium transmission, a perfect air conditioner, and a legendary grade off-road motorcycle. Amphibious, crosses any terrain, 800 kilometers an hour, 3 liters per 100. I took it out onto the open sand at 4 in the morning. I am not going to describe what 800 kilometers an hour feels like on a bike in the dark. I don't have the words. I laughed for 9 straight minutes and then had to stop and sit down. The motorhome went up to premium that week. Detection radius 800 meters plus 1,000 from the antenna, 1,800 meters. Everyone else on that road was still working with 400, which meant that for the rest of that desert, I saw every single person before they saw me. All of them, every time. The oasis was Wei Chang's now. It's a real oasis, a ring of fruit trees around a lake with actual shade under them. And after 40 days at 48 degrees, driving into it felt like walking into a different religion. The fruit was so full of juice it came apart in your hand. Wei Chang had claimed the whole thing, and his method was elegant in the way that only truly lazy cruelty ever is. He didn't pick the fruit. He let other convoys in, made them strip every tree down to the last piece, 3,000 and more, and then paid them for their labor with 1 unripe fruit each. And on the way out, a toll, 500 liters of fuel and 500 units of high-grade material per vehicle. Fuel is not money out there. Fuel is the number of days you are still alive. You should be polite, he told a man, handing over half his tank. I'm letting you go, so say thank you. Thank you, Brother Chang. Now roll. His own reasoning, which one of his people repeated to me later, was almost impressive. If we kill everyone, who the hell am I supposed to rob next week? He left an ambush team at the oasis and waited for me for 2 days. I spent those 2 days grilling perfect scorpion meat on the asphalt because the asphalt was hot enough to cook on, and I have never turned down a free stove. Mihu brought me a cold bottle from the refrigerator without being asked. Good, you know how to look after your master. Lin Wei sent me fruit from her own supply, and in return I sent her 1 skewer of perfect grade meat, and she reacted like I'd mailed her a car. Where did you even get this? I took it out of a monkey's mouth. Even the monkey eats better than I do. Mihu bit into one of the oasis fruits and his eyes went completely round, and then he did something I have never forgotten. He arranged his face into an expression of profound disappointment, held the fruit out at arm's length, and made a small noise indicating that it was not very good and he would suffer through it and would perhaps require a second one to be sure. I gave him a second one. He ate half of it, and then he stopped, looked at the remaining half, looked at me, and held it out. The little stone monkey had grown up enough to share his food. I took it. It was completely covered in monkey saliva. I gave it back. Zhang Horan cleared part of her debt that week with a perfect grade explosive bullet blueprint. Gunpowder plus adamantite detonates on impact, reusable forever. 300 rounds came out of the bench, and then I used the second quality improvement scroll on the Barrett. Perfect grade, 30% less weight, 30% less recoil, 30% more accuracy, magazine up to 50, and radar lock, which paints every living thing inside the optics range through sand, through steel, through walls. That's not a scope, that's X-ray vision with a trigger. I forged her a perfect Tang Dynasty sword and gave it to her free, which broke my own pricing policy for the first time in 24 days. And when she asked why, I said that a person that lucky deserves to be looked after. She bought a second one at full price immediately and gave the first one to Kiki. The monkey now has a perfect grade sword. I want that noted somewhere official. 5 men tried the stranded car routine on Zhang Haoran a week later. Hood up, hazard lights, one of them waving. She towed them out. She actually towed them out all the way onto firm sand, and then the mask came off and 5 men came at her from 3 directions. One stroke of a perfect grade blade. None of the 5 got back up. There was a 6th vehicle behind theirs, locked from the outside, and inside it was Sunmei, robbed down to nothing again, in a car that wasn't hers with the doors welded shut. Zhang Haoran opened it, threw her a change of clothes without a word, left 2 truckloads of supplies on the sand beside her, and drove off. The last thing she said before she left was this: instead of always relying on other people, focus on getting stronger yourself. She had no idea I'd said the exact same sentence to that woman 11 days earlier. She'd never heard it from me. 2 people who had never met in person, giving the same stranger the same advice, 300 kilometers apart. Sunmei stood in the sand and watched her go, and what she felt, watching a woman drive away who had killed 5 armed men in one motion and then handed her clothes, was not gratitude. It was envy, specific, chemical, total envy. She stepped on the face of one of the corpses on her way past. A bunch of useless trash can't even hold on to one woman. Wei Chang finally caught up with me at the end of that week, at the head of 20 vehicles, at a place where the road ran straight for 4 kilometers with dunes on both sides. The public channel started taking bets before either of us said a word. 12 people against 1 man? Isn't the flying speed team bullying an honest guy? My money's on Wei Chang. 20 cars is 20 cars. Lin Wei put 20 portions of refined gold on me. Wei Chang wanted to be reasonable about it first. That's what he called it, reasonable. You owe me an explanation, Xiaoming. Half your supplies in the blueprint for the legendary cigarettes, then we can call this settled. I know what he told his own people beforehand, because that convoy leaked like a colander. This is called having a legitimate reason. You attack a man's supplies, and you also attack his heart. Understand? I don't have any supplies, I told him. But I do have some other things. Do you want them? Tell me about it? Hold on. Then I opened the roof. I came up on the lift in perfect grade dark red armor with a perfect grade Barrett in my hands, and I was 200 meters away from the nearest one of them, which on that rifle is the same as being in the passenger seat. The channel figured it out about half a second before Wei Chang did. It's over. The big boss has a Barrett. The first round went through the front of a vehicle, through the engine block, through the firewall, and through the man behind it, and came out the back of the car. 17 shots. I did not miss with any of them, because at 200 meters, with a perfect grade Barrett and radar lock, missing is a thing you would have to arrange deliberately. The spectators watching from the dunes described it in the channel as auto-aim, which I think is fair. One of them stood up behind a wheel arch and waved a pair of white underwear over his head. We surrender. We really surrender. Please have mercy, Xiaoming's father. Xiaoming's grandfather. Mercy is King Yama's department, I said. My department is sending you to him. The underwear came down red. Nobody from that convoy left. 20 vehicles arrived and 0 vehicles departed, and Wei Chang went down somewhere in the middle of it, and when I walked the line afterward, I picked an ordinary grade Browning out of the sand next to a body. Ah, so you must be Wei Chang. The other survivors who'd been sitting outside the oasis paying his toll approached me very carefully at a distance, and there's some and asked if they might possibly be permitted to go inside and drink some water. I waved them in, and that is when the oasis produced the desert butcher, 3 meters tall, a crocodile's head on a human frame, iron plating across the chest and shoulders, and in each hand a crescent blade, a full meter across. The system labeled it as a mutated creature affected by the power of ascension, which meant nothing to me at that moment, and everything about 6 hours later. It threw both blades into the crowd I had just waved through the tree line. Everyone I let in, all of them, in about 4 seconds. I put a Barrett round into one of those blades in flight, and it deflected a Barrett. So I put 40 more into the second one after another, until something in the metal finally gave up and it came apart in its hand. Then the desert butcher dropped what was left and ran. 3 meters of armored monster, turning around and running away across open sand. 2 rounds in the back of the skull. It left me a legendary crescent blade blueprint that requires 5 mystic iron, and it dropped exactly 3 mystic iron. And if you want to know what design philosophy feels like from the inside, that's it. It also left perfect crocodile hide armor, a perfect run flat tire, 10,000 gold, and an ascension stone. Raises an item to legendary or mythical grade. 50% success rate. On failure, the item is destroyed. 50-50. Let's gamble, I said. My motorcycle's about to become a Land Rover. I'm a man blessed by Lady Luck, remember. I fed it the legendary motorcycle. The progress bar went up to 50% and stopped. It sat at 50% for the better part of a minute, and I would like to state clearly that I aged during that minute, and that I said several things to a loading bar that I am not going to repeat. Then it moved. Mythical Barrett energy cannon. Requires no ammunition. Beam width adjustable from a pencil to a bus. Self-repairing. Bound to the soul by blood. Destroyed if the owner dies. I test-fired it on an abandoned vehicle at 50 meters. There was no bang. There was a sound like a door closing very hard somewhere underground, and then there was no vehicle. There was a hot patch of sand with metal rain coming down around it. I traded a motorcycle for a weapon that doesn't take bullets. My ammunition problem, which I had solved on day 5 with an armor-piercing blueprint, had now been solved a second time by deleting the concept. 2 men filmed the oasis from a ridge that evening and put it in the public channel. Sunset, bodies everywhere, most of them cut apart by a monster nobody had seen, and walking out of the tree line through the middle of it, a man in dark red perfect grade armor with a golden monkey on his shoulder. The channel decided that day permanently and unanimously what I was. Xiaoming's a mass murderer. He killed everyone outside the oasis. All of them. He waved them in and then killed them. Would you believe me, I typed, if I told you those people were killed by a monster? Silence. Then somebody suggested that the monkey was a werewolf, and that theory did better than mine. The 2 cameramen, incidentally, panicked and abandoned each other about 6 seconds after filming, then spent 4 minutes screaming at each other over the channel about which one had betrayed the other first, then shot each other, and then the insects came for the one still breathing. I had nothing to do with that. That was entirely a them situation. Skeletons came next, which was new. Bones burned black, 2 red points of light down in the eye sockets, carrying swords and spears and halberds and bows. Wei Qiang's surviving deputy, a man named Li Xiang, took command of the leftovers of the flying speed team and shouted charge with tremendous authority, and then turned and ran in the opposite direction before anyone else had moved. A spear caught him in the back. A second one went through his head. I killed the skeletons with the mythical Barrett on its lowest setting because at full power, one shot would have wiped out the whole formation and probably the road behind it. They dropped 10 gold coins each. What's the use of a pile of rotten bones? You can't even make soup out of them. And then the horizon changed shape. Somebody put a video in the channel. 50,000 people watched it inside 4 minutes. A wall of gold going straight up into the sky until the sky gave up. 2 statues in front of it, 50 zhang tall, one holding an axe and one holding a pair of crescent blades. Golden City, not a safe zone, not a resource area. A third thing, the system called it a dungeon. You have arrived at the Golden City. Please enter and prevent the Emperor from ascending to heaven. If somebody wants to ascend, I said, let him ascend. Why are we stopping him? Ascension will consume the fortune of this world and the lifespan of all things within it. Then my motivation matters here, so take it straight. I did not go into Golden City to save anybody. I went in because the lifespan of all things is a category that includes me. I parked my motorhome directly against the base of that wall. Every other vehicle, and there were hundreds by then, stopped 100 meters back, all of them. Not one came closer, and when I asked why, several people tried to explain the feeling, and none of them could. I felt it too. I just kept driving. Zhang Haoran arrived that evening. Mihu was off the massage chair before her vehicle had stopped. Kiki is here. Put clothes on, I told him, and comb that. We're civilized monkeys in this house. He shot me a look of such profound gratitude that I understood immediately that I had saved him from a catastrophe he had not considered. We named that creature Sun Mihu. Some days I think it's an insult to those 3 words. We had dinner in my motorhome, the 4 of us, and I sent the monkeys to fetch the wine. I found out what happened next only the following morning. Under interrogation, Kiki had dropped something into the bottle, something she had picked up in a resource town and been carrying around for a week, on the theory that it would be good for her mistress. Mihu tried to stop her briefly and then folded completely with the reasoning that even if he were willing to harm her master, he could never harm his own. He then requested a portion for himself and was told it was not appropriate for monkeys. Whatever was actually in that powder, it was not what Kiki thought it was. It was some kind of tonic, and what it did to 2 adults who had been running on coffee and cigarettes for a month was turn the volume down on everything. We talked absolute nonsense for 4 hours. I told her about the time I lost a job over a bowl of soup. She told me about her grandmother's house. At one point, I explained the entire economic strategy of Hope City to a woman who had personally funded half of it at length with hand gestures, and she nodded along like she was hearing it for the first time. We both fell asleep at the table. The interrogation the next morning was conducted with a headache. Whose idea was it last night? Mihu stepped in front of Kiki. My idea, Mihu. Master, haven't you always said that learning should be combined with practice? I merely wish to give Master an opportunity to put theory into practice. Kiki from behind him. I just wanted to find a cook for our carriage. They sold out their owners for a hot meal, said Zhang Haoran. Besides, added Mihu, doesn't Master rather like this person? I heard Master say her name in his sleep the night before last. When did I ever? Both monkeys stood in the corner for an hour. If there is a next time, I told them, I will pluck every single hair off both of you. I'll never dare do it again. He did dare, twice later, but that's a different part of the story. The 2 cameramen deserve a proper telling because I have never in my life seen a friendship dissolve that fast or that completely. They'd been together since the first highway. Same region, same convoy, ate together, drove in formation, the whole thing. One of them was called Yang, and the other one I only ever knew as Fatty, which is what Yang called him in every single recording. They filmed the oasis from a ridge about 600 meters out, and they got the whole thing, and they were still filming when the desert butcher came through the tree line, and Yang did the professional thing and kept the camera up. Then it turned toward the ridge. It did not come toward the ridge. It turned toward it. That's all it did. Fatty was in the vehicle and moving before Yang had lowered the camera. And here is the part that matters. He did not shut the door. He drove off with the passenger door swinging. Yang made it about 40 meters at a full sprint before the vehicle was out of range. And it's already the street, some ports in trees, and then he stopped and stood there and started shouting into the open channel. We said we'd live and die together. Fatty, 2 kilometers away by then, answered him. You ran first. At the town, at the church. You ran first. You always run first, and you know it. That's not the same, and you know that's not the same. They argued for 20 minutes. 14, on an open channel at 2 kilometers of separation, while a 3-meter monster with crescent blades was somewhere between them, and about 4,000 people in that channel listened to every word of it in complete silence. Then Fatty came back. That's the thing nobody expects when I tell this. He turned around and came back for him, and he was 800 meters out when Yang, who by that point had been standing alone in the dark for a quarter of an hour with a camera and a pistol, shot at the approaching headlights. He said afterward, in a message that is still in that channel, that he thought it was somebody else's vehicle. Fatty returned fire. Both of them were terrible shots. It took 4 exchanges before one of them connected, and by then the noise had brought the insects. The one still breathing was Yang. He had about 90 seconds, and he used them to type an apology into the public channel, addressed to a man he had just shot, who was already dead in a vehicle 40 meters away. Then the channel moved on to arguing about my prices again. I did not have anything to do with any of that. I say that clearly, because for 2 days a version circulated in which I had arranged all of it, and there were people who preferred that version. A world where Xiaoming arranges things is more comfortable than a world where 2 friends do that to each other over a quarter of an hour with nobody making them. The skeletons were the first genuinely new thing that world had shown me in 2 weeks, and the first one deserves describing properly. I was standing in the open with the mythical Barrett when a hand came out of the sand about 4 meters to my left. Not a body, a hand and then a forearm, and then it stopped, as if whatever was attached to it had decided to think about it. Then 300 of them came up at once, across a front 600 meters wide, burnt bone, black all the way through, with 2 red points down in each skull where the eyes had been, and they were carrying weapons that had clearly been buried with them. Swords, spears, halberds. Some of them had bows, and the bows still worked, which is a thing I did not expect from a 100-year-old string. They came in ranks. That's what got me. Not a swarm. Ranks, with the spears in the second line and the archers behind, and somewhere in that formation something was making decisions. I asked Lin Ruoxi about it much later, and she told me the Golden City had been a real city with a real garrison, and that the ascension ritual the Emperor was running had been pulling them up out of the ground for 30 years. 11 years of a dead army, standing up a few at a time under a city nobody could enter. I killed them with a weapon that does not need ammunition, which is the only reason that fight was survivable, and I want to point out that I got that weapon 4 days earlier by gambling a motorcycle on a 50% chance. That is what Golden Legend actually is, by the way, and I want to be precise about it because people in that channel spent 2 months assuming it meant I got better loot. It does not make me stronger. It does not make me faster. It has never once stopped a bullet or healed a wound. What it does is make me right about gambles. Every single time I put something on a 50-50, it lands. Every 10 times I open something random, at least one comes back gold, which means that in a world where everybody else has to be careful, I get to be reckless, and reckless compounds. Every stupid risk I took paid, and each payout let me take a stupider one, and after 6 weeks, the gap between me and everyone else on that road was not a gap in skill. It was 6 weeks of compound interest on luck. I have never told anybody that. Not in the channel, not to Zhang Haoran, not to Lin Wei. Lin Ruoxi worked it out on her own in about 4 days, and the way she put it was, you don't win, you simply never lose enough to stop. Wu Lei got to the roulette wheel about 9 minutes after I finished with it. He had spent the entire morning at 100 meters from the wall, waiting for me to absorb whatever was inside, exactly as he'd planned. He came up 999 steps at a run. He arrived at a platform with a wheel on it that had already produced 5 mythical prizes for one man, and he got ordinary grade materials. Iron ingots, 200 of them. He stood there for a while. Then he raised his foot toward that wheel, and the man beside him grabbed him by the shoulder and physically pulled him backwards. And that is genuinely the only reason Wu Lei left Golden City alive. He did not thank him. He shrugged the hand off and walked down 999 steps in silence. Sun Mei, who had attached herself to his convoy, met him at the bottom and asked what he'd won. He hit her, not dramatically. He backhanded her across the face in front of about 40 people without saying anything and got into his vehicle. And I watched it from 60 meters away, standing next to a woman with an epic grade flaming sword and another one holding a bald chicken. I did not do a single thing. You already know what my record with that woman looks like. She left his convoy that night and took 2 of his vehicles with her. She'd been planning it for 5 days. She had a name in her head by then, and it was not Wu Lei's, and it was not mine. It was Wei Qiang's, and Wei Qiang was already dead, and I think that was the thing that broke her more than any of the rest of it. She had built her entire self around a revenge that somebody else had taken first in 17 seconds from 200 meters without ever knowing she existed. Lin Wei pulled in third, and the crowd 100 meters back had by then developed a working theory about me that involved the monkeys, and then she stepped out of her vehicle and they had to build a new theory from scratch. Sun Mei was in that crowd. She'd attached herself to Wu Lei's convoy by then, and she watched 2 women walk into my motorhome and something in her face came apart. Wu Lei threw her out of his vehicle onto the asphalt about an hour later. I didn't see it. I heard about it. The convoy captains held a meeting that night, and the summary of it is that every single one of them was blocked on my friends list and none of them could reach me, so they sent a messenger. I sent one back. The city opens at 9. Anyone who wants to go in, go in. After I clear it, I'll sell the information about what's inside. It's just a Barrett, said one of them, in a meeting he thought was private. Does he think he's carrying a cannon? Then Wu Lei proposed a plan that got thumbs up from every captain present. Let Xiaoming go in at 9. He absorbs whatever's in there. We go in at 9:30 and take what's left. And if he dies in there, everything he owns is sitting in a motorhome with nobody in it. Beautiful. Genuinely, I have no notes. I spent the morning forging 3 excellent grade shields, 2 for Zhang Haoran and 1 for Lin Wei, because if we were getting out of the vehicles, I wanted them behind something. I offered helmets too. Both refused on the grounds that it was 46 degrees. Golden City Battlefield activated. Your vehicle will be temporarily impounded. For dear time and distance by. Inside was a square the size of a district, and at the far end of it, a platform on top of 999 steps. Above the platform, hanging in the air, a golden disc covered in rotating runes, drinking sunlight down out of the sky in a visible column. The sand around us came apart, and skeletons in golden armor came up out of it with 3-meter spears. Let me do it. One beam. Then I did something I'd been wanting to try since the moment I read the words beam width adjustable, which was to hold the trigger down and swing. Half that square turned to ash in about 6 seconds. The convoys outside were having a different morning. The skeletons hadn't come up under me alone. There was an ocean of them out on the sand, plus arrows coming down in sheets, and the plan to arrive fashionably late at 9:30 converted into a stampede through the city gate at 9:04. They came through the archway and stopped dead because the ground in front of them was a carpet of bone dust for 400 meters. If you put all these back together, how many is that? Tens of thousands? Maybe 100,000. Maybe it's always been like this in here. The stairs took over an hour, 999 of them. The emperor was sitting at the top on a throne in golden armor covered in the same runes as the disc, and his pupils were dark red all the way through. Are you also here to stop me from ascending? That's right, no one can stop me. The pressure came off him in a wave. Both monkeys moved without being told, putting themselves between it and us, and the people who had just finished climbing behind us got picked up off the platform and rolled back down the steps like drop coins. He raised a scepter, and 10 soldiers of pack sand stood up out of the floor. Bullets went straight through them. The holes closed behind the bullets. Mihu emptied an AK magazine into one at 4 meters, and it walked through the burst without slowing. He can't be killed. I looked at the sand soldiers. Then I looked up at the disc hanging in the air, drinking the sun. Since I can't kill your sand soldiers, I said, I'll take apart your plate instead. The emperor's voice changed for the first time. You dare. Kill him. Kill him. Mythical Barrett, maximum output, straight up. Cracks went across that disc like ice on a pond. Every sand soldier on the platform lost cohesion mid-stride and fell into a heap. Then the disc came apart entirely, and every scrap of sunlight it had been storing came down in one column onto the throne. Out of the glare walked a burnt skeleton in melted gold. I am the Emperor of Kavada. I am eternally immortal. You're a walking corpse with good branding. One shot. The Desert Emperor's ascension has failed. Mission successful. The people on the stairs behind me started shouting my name, and it was the first time on any of those roads that a crowd had shouted it in a good way, and it landed strangely. Then the platform opened up and a wheel came out of it. A roulette. Ordinary rewards 50%, advanced 30, rare 15, legendary 3.5, epic 1.4, mythical 0.1%. Everyone who had reached the platform got one spin. The first man got 1,000 iron ingots and stood there looking at a mountain of metal on a platform 999 steps above his car. How am I supposed to carry 1,000 iron ingots down there? The second got a parts kit. A convoy captain got ordinary materials and punched the wheel, and a warning appeared saying, please do not attack the roulette, and then he was ash. Ding Lei got a premium Thompson. Liu Guohua got a legendary crossbow blueprint and was immediately surrounded by 40 new brothers and had to leave. Wu Lei got ordinary and came very close to kicking it and did not. Zhang Haran got epic, a flaming longsword, described as the eternally burning blade that cleaves away the darkness of the world, and it left 2 scorched grooves in the stone platform just from being drawn. Lin Wei got epic, a pet egg, and then it was me. The needle went around, slowed through the ordinary band, kept going, crawled through advanced, crawled through rare, crawled through legendary, crawled through epic, and stopped in the mythical sliver, Ascension Stone. Half the platform made a noise, and I stood there with the stone in my hand, looking at a wheel that had just delivered a 0.1% outcome, and I thought about a system voice on a hot morning telling me that fortune always finds its way to me. Then I pressed it again. The noise the crowd made that time was different. Somebody actually put a hand on a weapon. Mihu cut them down before they finished the movement. I will not stop any of you from leaving, I said, but if you draw on me, you'll carry the consequences. 5 spins. All 5 landed in the mythical band. 3 more ascension stones. A dragon scale armor, mythical grade, full body coverage, permanently strengthens the wearer's physique, carries a dragon's aura bound by blood, and a soul sucking blade, mythical grade, which draws the life essence out of an enemy and pours it into the person holding it. There's a magnet under there. There has to be a magnet under there. Is he the owner of this wheel? Destroy it. Please. I'm so tired. The scale armor sank into my skin when I put it on. It stops being armor you wear and becomes something you are. I drew my own perfect grade Tang sword across my forearm as hard as I could, and it did not leave a mark. Then I put a quality improvement scroll on the laser cannon. The progress bar stopped at 50% again. I stopped breathing again. Super Quantum Planet Destroyer, mythical grade, penetrates space itself. Attack path unpredictable and impossible to intercept. 1 hour charge time. I think, I said, they're all going to start calling me Godfather. I think, said Zhang Horan, they're going to fight to the death to steal your car. Lin Wei dripped her blood on the pet egg and nothing happened. Your blood isn't even enough to get between someone's teeth. Cut a major artery. Shut up! I took her wrist, opened it properly, and had the wound sealed with perfect ointment before she'd finished swearing at me. The egg drank like it had been waiting 100 years. She bit me on the shoulder in revenge and hurt her teeth on mythical dragon scale. Have you forgotten I'm wearing protective scale armor? The egg cracked. What came out was a bald red chicken. I want to describe it properly. Wet, featherless, approximately the size of a fist, furious. I laughed until I had to sit down on the steps of a dead emperor's platform. Then it ate its own shell, and crimson feathers came up across it in about 90 seconds, and one long gold feather rose out of the top of its head like a crown. Too beautiful chicken, epic grade. How about chicken soup tonight? No. The convoys that arrived late got to the platform, walked up to the wheel, and received a message. You are not eligible to participate in the prize draw. One of them hit it and became ash, and then several hundred people who had spent the morning waiting for me to absorb the danger started shouting at the people who had gone in at 9. If you'd waited for the rest of us, none of this would have happened. The people who had gone in at 9 looked at them the way you look at a clown who has walked into a funeral. 2 days later, the sky spoke again. The merge of 100 highways into survivors is complete. You have entered no man's land. Online, 987,654, nearly a million people, and the world we arrived in was gray. Gray dirt, gray ruins, dirt tracks running off in every direction, no grass, no trees, nothing living anywhere in any direction. 26 degrees, dry air with something underneath it like the smell of a room that has been closed a long time. Somebody immediately posted a photograph of their own front bumper hanging over the lip of a chasm you could not see the bottom of. If he'd driven another 2 meters, he'd have gone straight in. Maybe I wouldn't die from the fall. Get lost, you idiot. The church stood on a hill with its roof half gone, and it was full of statues. Dozens of them, in the pews, in the aisle, up by the altar, and every single one had a face, not carved faces. Faces, mouths open, eyes wide, hands up in front of them, all of them caught in the exact same expression, which was the one people make in the last second. The thing on the altar was 5 meters long, with 6 legs and a snake's head, and tentacles hanging off its neck like a beard. Snake dog. Low-level soul-eating beast. I shot it, and the statue stood up. Meat soil, the product of absorbed life essence, a shell of the soul with nothing left inside but the most primal killing instinct. I stood in the middle of a church with 40 of them closing in and asked the only question that mattered. Were these people alive? Nobody answered me because the only people in that building with me were a monkey and a robot I hadn't met yet, and one of them can't talk. I killed them all. When they break, red mist comes out. The diamond chest in the vestry gave me a herbal essence, a mystic iron, a perfect headlight, a perfect desert eagle, and legendary vegetable seeds that grow any legendary vegetable at 10 times normal speed in any soil. And when I collected the corpses of the soul-eating beasts, they gave me gold coins. Only gold coins. No meat, no hide, no materials. I stood there in a dead church working out what that meant for about 400,000 people who had arrived in this world with 3 days of food. Getting anything to eat out here was going to be a problem for everybody permanently. Zhang Horan ran into something new the same afternoon. Bullhao, low-level soul-devouring beast with a throat sac that fires energy pulses, and they travel in herds. One of those pulses came at her from the side. Kiki took it, full body, on purpose, in front of her. Every hair on that little monkey burned off. She got up out of a black crater with black skin and no fur anywhere and grinned with a mouthful of very white teeth. I'm fine. There were 17 bulls. Zhang Haoran went through the first one from jaw to tail with a flaming longsword, and the other 16 turned and ran, and one of them couldn't stop in time and ran directly onto the blade, which I maintain is the funniest way anything died in that world. Then we met the locals. 20 plus vehicles came up the road at us in formation, and they were not survivor vehicles. Jeeps, trucks, armored personnel carriers, engineering equipment, and mounted on 2 of the armored vehicles, walking gravity mechs. Their captain was called Graham. Wasteland hunters out of the lighthouse, which is a refuge that floats in the sky and has done since the Great Catastrophe 100 years ago. The lighthouse hasn't rescued a single survivor in 50 years, he said. You're the first people we've found out here in my lifetime. Zhang Horan, he repeated when she gave her name. What a strange name. Up on the lighthouse, there is a minister called Minjun and a city lord called Arthur, and when one of our people mentioned Earth, an entire command staff looked at each other. Earth? What kind of ball is Earth? Somebody in the Survivor channel, meanwhile, had compiled my entire biography, 130 characters plus 4 60-second voice messages. Barrett, that fires light, killed a mountain in one shot. 5 mythical prizes in a row on a wheel where mythical is 1 in 1,000. Pray to the great god plus 10,086. Absorbing European luck plus 10,086. Xu Jianjun had been a genuine national idol on Earth. He had spent a month as the most followed person in that channel. He lost the top spot in 9 minutes and never got it back. So I listed weapons: 10 Desert Eagles, 5 revolvers, 3 Glocks, 1 sawn-off shotgun, all of them collected off people who no longer needed them. Where are all the people who said they'd trade everything they own for a gun? Come and trade with me. I'm a kind person. I don't need everything you own. Half will do. The channel screamed, so I sweetened it. 1,000 ordinary armor-piercing rounds, 500 premium, and 100 perfect explosive rounds included with every weapon. The screaming changed pitch entirely. Opening bid, 100 refined gold, which for reference requires opening approximately 100 platinum chests to accumulate. It closed at 500 plus materials. I made 30,000 refined gold in 1 hour. Only the weak form groups I typed while Liu Guohua's convoy watched their entire collective savings go into my account for 4 handguns. The strong walk alone. You people know nothing about power. Here's what that hour cost though, and I did not calculate it at the time. Liu Guohua pooled every material his core group had and won a Glock. Then he set up a lending system, because he is genuinely clever, where his people could borrow the gun by putting up everything they owned as collateral. The first borrower was a man named Chen Long. You've met him, day 1. He's the one who stood up in the channel to announce that my berry prices were an insult to the working man, and then messaged me privately for 100 berries. He took the Glock out to a platinum chest sitting in a ruin full of statues, and he was careful. He was so careful. He put 3 crossbow bolts into 3 different statues from 30 meters and waited, and nothing moved, and he did it again, and nothing moved, and he did it a 3rd time. Then he opened the chest and got a car upgrade scroll and turned around. Every statue was standing. He emptied the magazine. The red mist got into him, and he started shouting at things that weren't there. And then the snake dog came and drove the statues off and took him for itself. He turned to stone from the feet up. When it was done, the beast spat him out, and he stood there in the ruins as a statue with his face frozen open, exactly like the ones he had been shooting at. Liu Guohua scrolled his friend list from the top down and then from the bottom up, looking for a name that wasn't in it. The Glock, bought an hour earlier for everything his entire convoy owned, was gone with the man. Somebody asked him what they should do now. How the hell should I know what to do? He tried to reach me through Lin Wei 2 days later. Full proposal. His entire security convoy at my disposal as gun and shield, plus 30% of everything they gathered, calculated in refined gold. I asked, how much can your convoy actually produce in a day? 10, maybe 20. An hour ago, I made 30,000 refined gold selling bullets. So, do you think I'm interested in 30% of 20? That was not a good decision. It was an accurate one, and those are different things. And I found out how different about a week later. I killed a snake dog with the front of my motorhome at 120 kilometers an hour, and it got back up and healed itself with blue light while I watched in the mirror. So I whistled at it out the window and stuck the barrel out, and it bit down on the barrel, and I fired. Then I put the soul-sucking blade into the corpse. Blue threads came up out of it, through the steel into my hands and up my arms, and everything under my skin went bright and warm at once, like every cell in my body had been standing in a spring rain. I pulled the blade out and looked at it. Not enough. That's the first thing I said. Not, what was that? Not, should I be worried? Not enough. Graham's company died 4 days later, and I was not there, and I have listened to the recording more times than is good for me. 2 new things came out of those ruins. Thorn eels, which are eel bodies with shark heads and 6 legs, and they spit bone spines that grow tentacles once they're in you and drink you from the inside. And a calyx beast, 15 meters, with a tail that opens into a flower. The flower makes a sound. The sound locks every human body and range in place, and while you're locked, every spine already in the ground turns towards you. It also brings the small ones back up when they die. Graham's second in command, a man named Mark, took a gravity mech and left. Just left, at speed, with the sound still going. One hunter stayed to cover the retreat. He walked his mech into the thing's claw, let it close, and blew the reactor. Bury me with you. It took both its front limbs off. They grew back inside a minute. Graham fought it alone after that in his mech, and it caught him with a blue beam at close range and took everything below his waist. Don't worry about me. Run, Mark. Take everyone. Run, quickly. That's the whole recording. That's what a man spends his last breath on. Then Kiki walked out of the smoke by herself with a flaming longsword. She went over the claw, put the blade into the calyx beast's back, and opened it from the shoulders to the tail. It dropped and played dead. She took its hand off, then its head. 17 of 130 hunters walked out of that valley. Is that thing even human? That looked like a monkey? What's a monkey? That question is not a joke. After the catastrophe, the only surviving record of most animals on that world is a primary school picture book. Half the lighthouse has never seen a bird. Commander Xiaodong arrived the next morning, and the first thing he did was walk to Mark's vehicle and pull him out of it by the collar. Under lighthouse law, those who abandon their companions and desert in battle are executed without mercy. The captain gave the order to retreat. I broke through successfully. What did I do wrong? One shot to the temple. Then Xiaodong went over the battlefield and found something in the dirt, a gold coin, brand new, not 100 years old like everything else in that world. He asked one of our people about it, a man named Zhou San, and got a long, confused answer about Earth. Earth? You're saying you're aliens? I guess. Then why do you look exactly like us? Maybe we're all just people? How many of you are there? 900,000, give or take. The lighthouse total population is not 1/10 of that. Xiaodong stood there for a long time doing arithmetic that I did not learn the shape of until much later. 900,000 people arrived in a world with no animals, no plants, and no water. And it took 4 days for the first ones to understand what that actually meant. On the highway, you could hunt. In the desert, you could hunt badly, but you could hunt. Out here, every living thing was a soul-devouring beast. And soul-devouring beasts do not drop meat. They drop gold. You can't eat gold. You can't drink gold. You can buy things with gold at a supply station, and there were exactly 4 supply stations found in the first week across a region the size of a country. The channel worked it out in stages, and watching those stages happen was like watching a building settle before it falls. Stage 1 was denial. It's a bug, they'll patch it. Stage 2 was bargaining. Someone must have found meat. Post a screenshot if you've collected meat from anything. Nobody posted a screenshot. Stage 3 was the math. A man with an actual background in logistics did the calculation publicly using average consumption and average reported stores and posted a single number, 26 days. Stage 4 was the part I hadn't predicted, which is that a significant number of people simply refused to believe it and got angry at him instead. He was accused of causing panic. He was accused of hoarding and trying to drive prices up. He deleted his post and apologized. The number was right. It was right within about 2 days. That is the environment in which I quietly installed 100 cubic meters of growing space inside my vehicle and told absolutely nobody. Kai Wen is the one I think about when people ask what that world actually did to people. Kai Wen had a convoy of 4 vehicles and 60 people, and by the standards of that region, he was doing well. He had fuel, he had a working plan, and he had made exactly one adjustment to his leadership style since arriving, which was that he had stopped asking. He posted the whole thing himself. That's the part nobody believes when I tell it. He live streamed it into the public channel because he was proud of the operation. He put a 19-year-old on watch outside the vehicles overnight on foot, alone, in a region where a snake dog can cross 40 meters in under 2 seconds because Kai Wen wanted the interior of his vehicle to himself and one other person. And because the 19-year-old had objected to that arrangement earlier in the day, the camera was on the dashboard, pointing out the windscreen. You can see the boy standing there. You can see him turn. The snake dog took his head into its mouth like a man biting the top off a bottle. Then it came to the vehicle. Kai Wen's last 4 minutes are in that channel, and 19,000 people watched them live, and what those 11,000 people did while a man was being killed on camera was type jokes. Even if you're thirsty, you can't go seducing a soul-devouring beast. Bro, put your resources on the trading mall and give them away free before you go. Don't waste them. He heard that one. That's the thing. He was still alive when that message came in and he read it out loud on camera and refused out of spite with the animal already through the rear window. Everything he owned went into the ground with him. I did not laugh at that stream. I also did not save anybody in it. Both of those facts belong in the same breath. I was 200 kilometers out and there was nothing to be done. And people always want you to pick one of the 2 to feel. Xu Jianjun's camp went down 8 days later, and that one I could have reached. I was 90 minutes out. I had a flying vehicle, a mythical cannon, a monkey with a Gatling gun, and a full tank. 90 minutes. They sent a general distress call at 50 at night. 140 people in a defensive ring. Snake dogs first, then the bulls, and then the thing that finished them. Spine goo. Skeletons carrying human skulls in their hands, and what comes off them is not a weapon. It's a fine crimson suspension, and once you've breathed it, the person next to you starts looking wrong, and then they start looking like the thing that's been hunting you, and then you shoot them. Of the 140 in that camp, more than half were killed by their own people. You can hear it in the recording, somebody screaming that Zhang is one of them. Look at his face, and Zhang screaming back that he isn't. And then the shot. Xu Zhenjun got out with 22. There was a woman holding onto his arm through the driver's window while he was pulling away, and he hit her hand off the frame with the butt of a pistol and drove. That's also on a recording. Somebody in the back seat had a camera running. He has never denied it. He was asked in the channel, and he said yes, and then he said there were 4 of us in that car, and she'd have taken the door with her. And the horrible thing is that this is arguably true, and I was 90 minutes out with a flying fortress, and I did not go. Here is what I told myself at the time, and it was accurate. I did not owe them anything. They had spent a month calling me a cheat. Xu Jianjun had personally tried to short me on a payment 9 days before. 90 minutes each way is 3 hours of fuel in a world where fuel does not regenerate, and the vortex work was the only thing that would actually end any of this. All of it accurate, every word. I still sat in the driver's seat with the engine off and the distress call open on the screen for 12 minutes, and I did not start the engine, and there is no version of that where I come out of it clean. Lin Ruoxi was in the passenger seat the whole time. She did not say a single word. When it was over, she said one thing. You wanted me to tell you to go. Yes, I'm not going to. Not because you were right, because if I tell you, then it's my decision and you'll be able to live with it. And you shouldn't be able to live with it. That woman has been alone for 90 years and she is still the most emotionally precise person I have ever met. And I hated every syllable of that sentence. The morning after, Liu Guohua stood up on a truck bed and gave the food speech, and after it, he did something clever that cost him nothing and probably kept 40 people alive. He banned solo scavenging in his convoy. Not by rule, by economics. He announced that any resource brought in by a person operating alone would be logged as convoy property with no personal share, and anything brought in by a pair would be split 50-50 with the finders. Overnight, nobody in that convoy went anywhere alone again. I sold him 20 cigarettes at 50 rare materials each that same afternoon and made a joke about being a tyrant. He is a manipulative, image-obsessed, fundamentally dishonest man who bought 600 people's loyalty with 6 pieces of refined iron and a good speaking voice. He also kept more of them alive than I did. I've thought about that a great deal, and I've arrived nowhere with it. The crater was 2 kilometers across, and there was a thing growing at the bottom of it that looked like a human brain the size of a house with tentacles, soul-devouring flower. It reaches for anything alive that comes over the lip. And under it, half buried, was the Kusin City Biological Research Center. I want to tell you about the best thing I found in that building, and it was not a weapon. It was in a locked storage room, and when I opened the door, it lit up and rolled forward and put one manipulator against its own chest plate. Health is paramount. Life is entrusted. Hello, I am Bing Bing, your loyal and reliable medical guide. Perfect grade medical robot. 9 buttons on its interface. It scanned me before I asked it to. No disease detected. Your physical fitness is simply like a superhero's. Then it made a small heart shape with both manipulators. Bing Bing, where is the most valuable part of this research institute? The most valuable part of the institute is, of course, its outstanding researchers. I looked at the locked door I had just opened. No wonder they shut you in a cupboard. You're a defective unit. He came with me anyway. He drives now. He cooks badly. He has a running total of my sleep quality that he volunteers without being asked. The rest of that building was worse. There was a storage hall behind a sealed door full of tanks with price tags on them, and what was inside the tanks was labeled as clean, universal living organ stock, each specimen priceless, and I am not going to tell you what was floating in them. I stood in that hall for a while. Then something came out of the dark at the far end, and it had been assembled out of more than one person, and it had a face on its chest, and the face was awake. The system called it experimental subject number 2 and gave its age as 190 years. I did not enjoy any part of that fight. The pharmacy on the second floor was preserved for 200 years and fully stocked, and after a month of a world where medicine did not exist, I want you to understand what I was looking at. Flu capsules, kidney tonics, whose packaging asked whether I was lacking stamina under immense pressure, physically weak, and unable to make ends meet, which felt targeted. Anti-cancer treatment, 300,000 with an additional 20% off if you presented a social medical insurance card, which I did not have. Laxatives, painkillers, vitamins, and 100 perfect protective masks. Filters 100% of toxins, night vision, air quality sensor. On my way out, the floor moved. Black-red sludge coming up through the drains and across the tiles, and where it touched a dead maintenance robot, the robot stood up and walked at me. Shirong. Living earth. It wakes to blood and it wears the dead. It is also afraid of fire, which I established by emptying 2 barrels of gasoline down the corridor and throwing a lighter after them. 6 men were waiting at the top of the crater when I came out, and they shot me with crossbows. I heard the impacts, that's all. Bolts came off mythical dragon scale and clattered on the rock, and it took me a full second to remember I was wearing it. They scattered to their vehicles. I climbed a rock formation and took them at ranges out to 2 kilometers with the energy cannon. One of them was weaving. Snakeskin maneuvers, he was shouting over an open channel to his friends while doing it. If you've got the guts, shoot me dead. I shot him dead. The last one hid behind a boulder. The beam went through the boulder. A little clever, not much. Mihu sat on the roof with a hell gatling across his knees, radiating grievance. Why didn't you leave one for me? Lin Wei paid off part of what she owed me with a perfect flamethrower blueprint, reusable, 3 modes, 100 meters of range and 30 meters of spread. I taught Bing Bing to use it. He fires it in short bursts like brushstrokes and appears to enjoy it, and I have chosen not to think about that. Then it rained for 2 days, and the Survivor channel discovered a completely new kind of suffering. I have a fever. I have not stopped going to the toilet in 9 hours. There is no toilet. There is no paper. I am in a wasteland. A man named Zhang Yi announced in the public channel that he was going to eat healing ointment since it was the only medicine anyone had, and asked whether anyone thought it would work, and I typed the greatest sentence of my commercial career. Brother, I have genuine anti-diarrhea capsules right here. Oh, Dad, he meant it. That was not a joke. That man called me Dad with his whole chest in front of 900,000 people, and I have never felt more purely useful. Price, 1 perfect grade frame upgrade blueprint for 3 capsules. Once a day, 1 at a time, and don't underestimate this medicine. A 500 jin pig that eats one won't be able to go for 3 days. Was that pig medicine? Did he just sell me pig medicine? Then I listed the entire pharmacy. What? 1 cough capsule costs a full refined gold? What you're selling is more expensive than bullets. Boss, are you Doraemon? I sold cold medicine to 900,000 people in a world with no doctors, and I did not raise the price when the rain got worse. That is the single most generous thing I can say about myself from that entire month. Zhang Horan went up to the lighthouse. They lowered a platform for her, ran a medical scan, and everything was going fine until Kiki said hello, and 2 soldiers came out of the vehicle screaming that there was a monster inside. She put a hat and a face mask on that monkey and walked her through the checkpoint like a small, unusual relative. The city lord Arthur has 1 eye and 1 arm and carries a white and gold sword. Zhou San, who went up with her, told them everything, where we came from, what the road was, that we were here to end the catastrophe. Then he tried to explain the system and hit a wall in his own throat and could not get the words out. They took him away for genetic testing at a place called the Hall of Dawn, which is where the lighthouse manages its own reproduction. The notice came back 4 days later. The experiment failed. His brain consciousness was completely devoured by the spinal parasites. He has been destroyed. And after a survivor attack on the lighthouse a week later, they put Zhang Haoran under house arrest. Want to put me under house arrest? I sent her 2 perfect grade handguns through the trading system that afternoon. For self-defense, thank you. 20,000 gold coins. I found the valley 3 days later, and it should not have existed. Wooden houses built into a cliff face, a blue lake with actual water in it, rows of canned food, and a television switched on with a game paused on the screen. The woman who came out of the house had white hair down her back, and she deflected my first shot with a sheathed blade before I understood she'd moved. I did not have a good opening line. What I said was, so white. And I was not talking about her hair. Master, stop being infatuated. I feel this person is very dangerous. This is not where you should be. Leave. Do you know how to end this disaster? She stopped. You can't do it. Not, I don't know. Not, nobody can. You can't do it. Which is a completely different sentence, and I heard the difference, and that is the only reason I did not leave. The wall of her main room was covered in newspapers and photographs from 100 years ago. Earth vine, the origin of the disaster. A plant the size of a mountain range with eyes on it, which produced the entire mana ecosystem. Every soul-devouring beast, every snake dog and bull and thorn eel, and which has spent a century harvesting the life essence of everything alive on that planet. 5 blood vortexes, and in one of them, at the planet's core, the main body. She gave me a navigation unit she'd pulled off a scrapyard decades ago, still running, with 5 red skulls on the map. Her name is Lin Ruoxin. Are you willing to come with me and end this disaster? My game isn't finished yet. So we played Borderlands 10 on a 100-year-old console until 2 in the morning, and that was one of the best nights of my life. Here is what she is. She is over 100 years old. A century ago, the people of that world dug something out of the planet's core. It was alive. It was paralyzed. They called it a god because that is what people call things they can't explain and can't kill. They made 2 drugs from its genes, Angel A, which regenerates nerve cells, Miracle K, which regenerates everything else. The first 18 test subjects died. The 19th became the first soul-devouring beast. Lin Ruoxi injected herself with both, alone, after the catastrophe had already started. It was half successful. Her body is coming apart and rebuilding at the same time, and in a meditative state called Guiyuan, the 2 rates balance out. Outside that state, the decay runs faster. And then she told me the rule that governs every living human being on that planet. In this world, emotions are the most fatal thing you can carry. Continuous surging emotion makes the life essence give off a scent. They track it across any distance. Love, family, friendship, fear, anger, joy, grief. If you want to live here, you keep all of it hidden inside your chest and you never let any of it out. I thought about 100 years of that. Not being allowed to be happy out loud. Not once. Not for anything. She tried to teach me Guiyuan, breathing, posture, stillness. I fell asleep in 7 minutes. Bing Bing reported on it the next morning without being asked. You slept for 10.5 hours last night with excellent sleep quality. Please keep it up. She threw a bone across the valley to demonstrate something, and it went into a stone wall on the far side and stayed there. I threw one. It did not reach the lake. Mihu threw one. It went into the same wall, deeper. Your pet is quite powerful. How rude. You're the pet. I cooked dinner for her that night. She ate almost all of it, quietly, methodically, and by the end her stomach was visibly round, and she looked faintly embarrassed about it. It was the first fresh fruit she had eaten in several decades. Wu Lei found the first blood vortex from a hilltop and did the smartest thing he had ever done, which was nothing, ruin under a red fog that never lifts and thousands of soul-devouring beasts standing outside it in ranks. He posted the coordinates in the public channel and encouraged everyone to go take a look. Killing with a borrowed knife? Bah, this is called using strength against strength. His own deputy challenged him for the convoy that night and asked for an honest duel. Wu Lei answered with great courtesy, "You go first, otherwise, even if I win, it won't be a fair victory." Then he shot him in the back while he was walking to his mark. Shu Qianjun, meanwhile, was building an actual camp. Over 100 people, vehicles in a ring, watches rotating. It was the most competent thing anybody in that channel organized, and it lasted 11 hours. The snake dogs came first, then the bulls, and then, out of the ruins, something new. Spine goo, skeletons carrying human skulls, and they leak a fine crimson suspension that gets into your head, and the people who breathe it start swinging at whoever is closest. Half of that camp died to the other half. A woman got hold of Shu Jianjun's arm in the middle of it, and he knocked her loose and pushed her out of the vehicle and drove. He came out of it with 22 people. Liu Guohua, a kilometer away, came out with about the same. And that morning, Liu Guohua stood up on a truck bed in front of the survivors of both camps and told them the thing everyone had been avoiding. Has nobody noticed that when we collect the corpses of these things, we only get gold coins? No meat, not once. Not from any of them. Somebody said maybe it's a bug. It's not a bug. There is nothing alive in this world except us and them. When our supplies run out, there is nothing to replace them with. 6 people left the camp that morning. The rest stayed because there was nowhere to go. So I listed 100 perfect protective masks at auction. Cheating. This is absolutely cheating. Is nobody going to do anything about this, man? Guns, bullets, medicine, and now gas masks. Did your family build this world? Liu Guohua bid the price up himself, publicly, which I appreciated as showmanship. 20 masks went for 200 refined gold, 500 rare materials, and 7,000 gunpowder, and it left both surviving captains completely broke. Then Liu Guohua announced that his 18 remaining masks would go to the strongest and bravest fighters in the camp. Nobody moved. He caught the eye of one of his own men, and that man stepped forward and was immediately made captain of the first squad and given a full share of everything the convoy brought in from then on. After that, they were falling over each other to volunteer. Lin Wei got a mask from me for free. She asked why. It's nothing special. Consider it compensation for the price difference on a certain grocery run in a desert. She did not respond for 40 minutes. I want to tell you how I cleared the monster camp outside the vortex because everybody watched it and nobody understood it. I drove my motorhome into the densest part of 100 snake dogs and spine worms, and then I just stopped in the middle of them, engine idling, while several hundred people watched from a ridge 2 kilometers away with their hands over their mouths. Half an hour later, I drove out. Everything within 30 meters of that vehicle was carbon and bone dust, and my tires were buried in it to the axle. Why are the monsters lying down? Why are they just lying down by themselves? He's got high voltage running through the body of that car. He has to. He's electrified the entire vehicle. Then I got out and finished the ones on the edge with explosive rounds from an AK. And the Ridge had opinions about that too. That man genuinely does not treat bullets like money. Couldn't he just get out and chop their heads off with that big knife of his? I collected about 100 abandoned vehicles out of the surrounding ruins, took the cores and the good parts, and left the rest. 2 rare materials per person, and this pile is yours. They had no rare materials. They had spent everything on masks. Oh, you lot have very good taste, by the way. I had sold them the masks. The weapon blueprint vending machine turned up in the next resource zone, and it was the single largest purchase of my life. Perfect grade blueprints, 6 to 10,000 gold each, limit 10. I took Bombardment, Jacobs, and Behemoth, plus 10 sheets of perfect ammunition blueprints, and I had to walk back to the motor home for more gold twice. 2 men were rummaging through a ruin nearby, and went very still when they saw me. Boss, we haven't disturbed you, have we? No, search your ruin, just don't provoke me. And then once I was 6 meters away and apparently deaf, one of them said this to the other. Have you ever seen a good person who could wipe out an entire convoy and then smile at you afterward like nothing happened? Am I that scary? I asked Lin Ruoxi. So. Scary to monkeys. The Geosaur came out of the ground under a ruined street, 7 meters, black scaled, and it swallows people whole rather than bothering to kill them first. There were 10 survivors in that street with me, and I want to be honest about what I did while it was actively eating one of them. I counted heads. 1, 2, 3, 10. There are 10 of you. I want 1 valuable resource from each of you for handling this. Is that too much? Not too much. Not too much at all. Mihu took the shell off its skull with the behemoth, and underneath was a second head, which I thought was very rude. 20 rounds into the same spot fixed it. To kill these things permanently, Lin Ruoxi said, you must either destroy the spirit particles inside them or take the head. I put the soul-sucking blade into the Geosaur, and it drank the whole thing in 5 minutes. She watched the blue threads climbing up my arms. Who exactly are you? Relax. I'm just an ordinary guy. Then I turned around and collected my 10 payments, and Xu Jianjun tried to argue that he had merely been passing through and had not technically commissioned anything. That makes sense, he relaxed. But I don't want to be reasonable with you. The escort wife incident happened the next day, and I would pay money to forget it. A man calling himself Fang rolled up with 50 people. He had been Xu Jianjun's fan on Earth for 10 years, which is its own tragedy, and he looked me up and down in a way that I had until then only ever been looked at by health inspectors. You must be Xiao Ming. You're good looking and you've got plenty of resources. How about it? Would you consider becoming my escort wife? So he likes men, observed Lin Ruoxi. You don't need to point it out. Xu Jianjun from behind him in a voice of infinite reassurance. Kun, don't worry. No matter how many people I take in later, you will always be the most important to me, and the position of head wife will always be yours. Who wants to be your head wife? Fang picked him up by the collar. If you don't obey, I'll break your legs and turn you into a human pig. Then 5 or 6 of them opened up on me at close range with rifles and crossbows. It sounded like somebody dropping cutlery. Ghost? He isn't human. He isn't human at all. Finished? Good. My turn. 2 of them stopped existing. Fang got behind Xu Jianjun and held him there. Don't shoot. He'll die too. And what does his death have to do with me? There was a puddle under Fang shortly after that. What exactly were you wrong about? I shouldn't have robbed you. Wrong. You shouldn't have disgusted me. Afterward, I separated the ones who had fired from the ones who hadn't. 1 man stepped out of the wrong group. I didn't shoot. I swear I didn't. I had watched him shoot. Then I turned to Liu Guohua, who had arrived in time to see all of it and was standing very still. Old Liu, what do you think we should do with these people? Suction kill. Kill them. You heard him, I told the group. He's the one who said to kill you. When you get to the underworld, report his name to King Yama. The look on that man's face was worth the entire pharmacy. The Shirang came out of the ground in the next ruin as a tide and took 2 men off their feet with tentacles before anyone had drawn a weapon. Captain Liu, do you have gasoline? Throw gasoline forward, now. 10 barrels and 1 perfect flamethrower. Inside the building at the center of it, there was a small mana ecosystem, which is a phrase that means a vine with something growing inside it, and what was growing inside it was a soul-devouring beast embryo in a half-transparent sack. This is the first time I've ever seen a plant give birth. I burned the whole pit. Out of the fire, for about 2 seconds, came the sound of a baby crying. Then it stopped. Nobody in that building said anything for a while. Lin Ruoxi put a hand on my arm, which is not a thing she she does and said the only useful thing anyone could have said, which was, that was not a child. It was never going to be a child. I know, I burned it anyway and I'd burn it again. I still hear it. What was left in the ruins under all that was a legendary cultivation nursery, 100 meters cubed of growing space that installs into a vehicle as a door into somewhere that isn't anywhere. I taught Mihu and Bing Bing to plant. Not bad. You've got the innate farming science physique. They planted everything crooked. The seeds came up in under a minute anyway. Legendary mighty spinach, which increases strength and which I'm fairly sure was stolen from a cartoon. Legendary blood replenishing tomato, which restores chi and blood and improves the complexion. Food growing in a world where food had stopped existing. I did not announce that in the channel. Some advantages you keep. Liu Guohua bought 20 cigarettes off me at 50 rare materials each. Do I strike you as a treacherous merchant or more of a tyrant? Not at all, neither. Then clearly, I've priced them too low. I'll raise it next time. He distributed those 20 cigarettes at 1 per 5 men, 1 drag each, passed down the line. Within a week, the non-smokers in that convoy had become a valuable resource, and there were fights over who got to stand next to them. Lin Ruoxi started teaching me Guiyuan properly around then, and I want to explain what it actually is because I had it wrong for a week. I assumed it was meditation, sitting still breathing, emptying the head. That's what it looks like from outside, and that is why I kept falling asleep. It isn't that. It's the opposite of that. Guiyuan is holding every single thing you feel, all of it at once, at full strength, and not letting one particle of it out of your body, not suppressing it, containing it. She described it as carrying a full cup up a staircase forever in the dark while people talk to you. You aren't calm, I said, on about the 4th attempt when I finally understood what I was watching. You're never calm. You've been holding a full cup for 90 years. Yes, that's not survival. That's a sentence. Yes, she was in the passenger seat looking out at a gray horizon, and she said the next part without any particular weight on it, which is how she says everything that matters. For the first 20 years, I broke it constantly. Every time they came, I lost the valley twice, I lost everyone I had twice. After that, I stopped breaking it. And now I have not laughed out loud since before your grandparents were born, and last week I ate a piece of fruit in front of a market of 10,000 people, and I felt something come up in my chest and I put it down. I did not have anything clever for that. For once, what I said was, when this ends, you're going to have a lot of catching up to do. And she said, you keep saying when. The lighthouse assault was 3 days later, and I want to give Feng Li his due because the plan was not stupid. The plan was actually good. The platform that comes down from the lighthouse has 4 doors on it, and they open together, and it takes 90 seconds to ascend. Feng Li's plan was 112 people, staged in 4 groups at 4 points around the landing zone, going in through all 4 simultaneously, on the theory that 4 doors is 4 problems, and the guards up top can only shoot at so many things. His grenades were real. He'd found them in a military ruin and had been sitting on them for 9 days without telling anybody, which shows more discipline than most of that channel managed in 2 months. And when he produced the first 2 in the briefing, he took them out of the waistband of his trousers, and one of his own captains asked the question everybody was thinking to Captain, where exactly did you pull those from? Is that the point? It's a point. What killed the plan was Shadowlord, who sold it to the lighthouse 4 hours in advance for 14 crates of preserved food, and then sat in the assault group's own staging area, listening to them finalize it. The lighthouse opened 1 door, 1 out of 4, 90 seconds of ascent time, 112 people funneling toward a single opening, and behind that opening, an armored vehicle with its main gun already laid on the gap. The first shell went through Feng Li's vehicle lengthwise. Somebody threw a grenade, and it went off against the door frame on the wrong side of it, and Feng Li, with his convoy coming apart around him, transmitted the last thing he ever said. Retreat? What retreat? All of you, charge with me. I don't believe they can fit bayonets to their cannons. They could not fit bayonets to their cannons. They did not need to. The hunt for the traitor afterward lasted 2 days, and I watched all of it, and it is the single best piece of theater that channel ever produced. Gao Xiaofeng, who had been standing next to Shadowlord in that staging area and had absolutely nothing to do with the leak, was accused within 4 hours on the basis of having survived. So he posted a photograph of a body, described it as his younger brother who had died going through the door, and asked the channel publicly in 3 messages whether they really believed a man would send his own brother into a trap for supplies. The channel apologized to him. Collectively, there were people saying they felt ashamed. Shadowlord, who actually did it, contributed to the apology thread. The body in the photograph was not Gao Xiaofeng's brother. It was a man from a different convoy who had been dead for 6 days, and I know that because I had collected the core out of his vehicle myself on the way past, and I recognized the tarpaulin. I did not say anything. I want to be honest about why. Not because it wasn't my business, and not because I was afraid of anything. I didn't say anything because Gao Xiaofeng was, by that point, buying serum from me in volume, and Shadowlord was buying nothing. That's it. That's the whole reason. I let a man take credit for a dead stranger and turn a channel of 900,000 people against an innocent bystander because one of them was a customer. I have made worse decisions in that world. I have not made a smaller one. The resource zone market was the closest thing to a city any of us built, and it lasted 3 days. 10,000 people, 3 convoys running it, prices chalked on boards, actual stalls with actual specializations. There was a man who did nothing but repair tires. There was a woman running a laundry with water at a price that made my eyes water. There was a stall selling nothing but salt run by a former accountant who had cornered every gram in the region inside 4 days and was very pleased with himself and who I respected enormously. And there was old Joe's stinky tofu. I need you to understand the situation properly. That world had no animals, no plants, no fresh anything. 10,000 people were living on preserved rations and system materials, and somewhere in that market, a man had set up a stall with a fermenting crock and was producing actual food with an actual smell. 1 rare material per piece, that's a price that would have bought a rifle magazine. The queue was 4 hours long. Authentic old Joe stinky tofu. Eat 1 piece and I guarantee you'll want a second. He was not lying. I bought 11 pieces. Lin Roxy had never eaten fermented anything in her life because the Lighthouse food supply is nutritionally complete and tastes, by her own account, like a decision. She examined a piece of stinky tofu for a long moment, ate it, thought about it with her whole face, and nodded once. Then she picked up a second piece with her chopsticks and held it out to me. I have described the reaction of the crowd. What I did not describe is my own, which was that I sat there for a full second with my mouth open because a woman who has not permitted herself an unguarded gesture since before the Second World War had just fed me tofu in a market. She put her chopsticks down immediately afterward and did not look at me for 30 minutes. That was her breaking Guiwan. That was it. That was the whole thing. 100 years of holding a full cup, and what finally spilled it was fried bean curd. A man named Feng Li decided to take the lighthouse. He had 100 people and a plan, and the centerpiece of the plan was 10 hand grenades. And when he produced the first 2 of them in a briefing, one of his own captains asked the obvious question, "Captain, where did you pull those out from? Is that the point?" The plan died because a survivor called Shadowlord sold it to the lighthouse for supplies 4 hours before it started. When Feng Li's people found the leak inside their own group, they executed the wrong man for it, which I think is a fitting summary of that entire operation. The platform came down at the appointed time and opened 1 door out of 4. Everything depended on all 4. An armored car's main gun went through Feng Li's vehicle lengthwise. Somebody threw a grenade and it detonated at the threshold on their own side. Retreat, what retreat? All of you, charge with me. I don't believe they can fit bayonets to their cannons. The second shell went in through his windscreen. Afterward, the channel hunted for the traitor for 2 days, and a man named Gao Xiaofeng posted a photograph of a corpse he described as his fallen brother and turned the entire public mood around in 3 messages and was never suspected again. It was Gao Xiaofeng. Lin Roxy and I reached the second blood vortex at the end of that week, and she explained on the way what we were driving toward. Once every 10 or 20 years, the soul-devouring beasts carry everything they've harvested back to the Earthvine, all of it at once. Rent day. And the thing collecting the rent? The soul-devouring beast emperor. It guards the vine. It's the only one permitted to speak with it. The canyon roared while she was still talking. Then the tide came. I have used the word tide before in this story, and I want to withdraw every previous use. Everything the wasteland had shown me in a month came up that canyon at once. Snake dogs and bulls and thorn eels and things I never got a name for. In a column 300 meters wide. Me who went up through the roof with a legendary Hell Gatling. 1,000 rounds a minute, 5,000 round magazine, effective to 3 kilometers, and each individual round is roughly the size of a 2-liter bottle. He cleared 50 meters in every direction and kept it clear. I put the Barrett on maximum. At maximum, the beam is about as thick as a saucepan lid, and it does not stop at the first thing it touches, or the 10th, and every creature it went through came apart into blue sparks of life essence that went up into the dark like fireflies, and then the Emperor put its head over the canyon rim. The head alone was the size of my motorhome. It rested its jaw on the rock and looked down at us, and it roared, and Lin Ruoxi translated, "It's warning us not to enter." It roared again, louder. Now it's telling us to get lost. How rude. Can you ask it politely to let us in for a quick look? I can't say that. Then I suppose we'll have to use force. There was one convoy still parked behind us at that point, run by a man called Tao Lei, and I want to record his contribution to the battle in full. You lot go in first. Nobody went in. My stomach hurts. My wife is calling me home for dinner. Then get lost, I said, and they did, at speed. The mythical grade cannon has a name now. The system gave it one after the upgrade, and I have never once used the short version. Super invincible cool, dominating hyper quantum star annihilation cannon equipped luxury off-road base RV. I said the whole thing out loud before firing, because if a system is going to hand you a name like that, you owe it the courtesy. The first shot tore a hole in the air, not a beam, a hole. The light went into it and stopped existing. There was a rip hanging over the canyon with nothing on the other side of it, and I sat in the driver's seat of my own home with both hands on the wheel, thinking very clearly, if that does not close, it takes me, along with everything I own, the stupidest death in the history of 900,000 people. Then the beam came out of a second rip. Behind the Emperor, it had already turned to face the first one. It had already fired its own pulse into the space where the shot should have been, and that pulse was still in the air when a column of purple gold light came through the back of its skull from 400 meters behind it. The Emperor's head stopped being anywhere. The light went up past the clouds and stayed there for 5 seconds, and half the sky in that hemisphere turned the color of a bruise, and 900,000 people saw it from wherever they were standing. Phew, I said to a cannon. You scared me to death, doing all that flashy business at close range. The body was still standing, headless, upright, completely blocking the canyon mouth. I put the soul-sucking blade into it, and the blade told me what it was. Advanced soul-devouring beast, and the corpse gave me gold coins. Gold coins, that's it, from the Guardian of the Earth Vine. Not worth it. Not worth it at all. Next time, before I collect anything, I'm chopping 2 legs off first to check for freshness. Down inside the canyon we found what the rent was being paid to. A flower king. A purple bloom the size of a stadium with black stamens that track movement like eyes, and hundreds of soul-devouring beasts queued around it in a spiral, each one handing over its harvest through a tentacle. Mihu opened up on the pipework in the buildings. Then I took the flamethrower up onto the roof and worked from the top of that bloom down to its root, and it went black and came apart in flakes. A diamond chest came up out of the pit afterward. Of course, there's always a consolation prize. Perfect engine, perfect transmission, mystic iron, 10 plant essences, a legendary condenser, and a perfect earth vine root, described as an extremely dangerous plant. Please cultivate with caution. Lin Ruoxi looked at that root for a long moment and then at me. A weapon that devours other people's life essence. Here. And now, a ground creeper root. I seriously suspect that you are connected to the monster we dug out of this planet. Monster? You told me it was a god. That's what other people call it. The last 2 blueprints out of that chest completed the set, and every single component in my vehicle went perfect grade, and 10 good cores went into the upgrade. Speed 300 kilometers an hour, detection radius 2600 meters, and 2 new options I had never seen before: water travel and aerial flight. Only by conquering land, sea, and sky at once can a vehicle be considered truly perfect. The wheels folded up into the underbody. Flame came out of the housings where they'd been. The steering wheel retracted into the dash and a flight stick came up out of the console. 60 kilometers an hour, 100 meters of altitude, 30 liters per 100 kilometers. I took a 12-meter motorhome into the air over a wasteland. Driving a flying car isn't difficult at all. Driving a flying car isn't hard, said Lin Ruoxi. Flying an aircraft is hard. You've flown an aircraft? I have. You're a brain scientist. Sure. Brain science is my profession. Combat is my hobby. Tao Lei's scouts were watching from below, and I have the recording of their report because somebody sold it to me later. Boss, Xiaoming's motorhome flew away. What do you mean flew away? Xiaoming drives a car, not an airplane. Before, he was driving a car. Now he's driving a flying car. How did it fly? It just went by you and flew. Ramwin, are you certain it was by you and not swoosh? Somebody on the ground fired at me while I was up there. I responded with a burst of energy rounds straight down, and then went home and installed perfect exterior armor made of refined gold with firing slits. The public channel filed a formal complaint with the universe. Cheating weapon I thought the account must be banned. Liu Guohua and Xu Jianjun jointly announced in public that anyone who moved against me was an enemy of their combined convoys. They did that for free. Nobody asked them to. That is what it looks like when a man decides you are weather rather than a person. The resource zone at the edge of the 3rd region had 10,000 people living in it, and an actual market, stalls, barracks, prices chalked on boards, 3 convoys running the whole thing between them. White Shark under a man called Bai Sha, Dawn under Yang Jian, and Black Dragon under a woman named Guo Fen. Somebody in that market made a comment about Lin Ruoxi inside 17 seconds of us arriving, and then 5 of them closed in. The soul-sucking blade came out and went back in inside half a second. All 5 of them went down, and they were dry before they landed. The blade had taken everything on the way through. That one is mine, I said, to a market of 10,000 people. Try again. Bai Sha arrived with his personal guard and demanded 3,000 rare materials or the blade itself, and was in the middle of the sentence when a man behind him grabbed his sleeve and whispered a name. It's Xiaoming. The entire scene reversed inside 4 seconds. Bai Sha paid the 3,000 rare materials himself, personally guided us to the material vending machines, and bought us lunch. Lunch was stinky tofu, 1 rare material per piece. Authentic old Zhou stinky tofu. Eat 1 piece and I guarantee you'll want a second. Lin Ruoxi tried it, thought about it seriously, and nodded. Then she picked up a second piece with her chopsticks and held it out to me in front of 10,000 people. Several women in that crowd made a noise I can only describe as grief. I think one of them said loudly that you want to eat Xiaoming Dada's tofu. The garden was the only thing I built in 3 worlds that made anything instead of taking it. 100 meters cubed hanging off my vehicle as a door that opens into somewhere that is not anywhere. And inside it dirt. That's what it gives you. Dirt and space. Everything else you have to do yourself. Mihu planted the first row and every seed went in at a different depth and about half of them went in sideways. Bing Bing planted the second row with millimeter precision and killed every single one of them because he watered to a medically optimal moisture level that turned out to be roughly 3 times what a legendary spinach can tolerate. Bing Bing, they're dead. Translation: the third row I did myself badly, and it came up in under a minute because legendary seeds do not care about your technique. Mighty Spinach, which increases physical strength, and which I am 90% certain was stolen wholesale from a cartoon I watched as a child. Blood Replenishing Tomato, which restores chi and blood, and according to the description, improves the complexion. Lin Ruoxi ate one of the tomatoes and stood very still. Issue was what? Nothing. Lin Ruoxi. I have not tasted anything with sugar in it that was not a preservation compound since I was 31 years old. She ate 4. She then went and stood at the far end of the garden with her back to me for a while, doing gui yuan, holding a full cup over a tomato. I planted the earthvine root at the back, in a corner, in a container, on the reasoning that a perfect grade sample of the thing destroying the world was either the most dangerous object I owned or the most useful one, and that I would rather find out on my own schedule. It grew 4 centimeters in the first week and then stopped, and it has been sitting there ever since, doing nothing, in a pot, in my house. Lin Ruoxi checks on it every morning. She has never once said why. The food problem, meanwhile, was eating that channel alive. 26 days. The logistics man had said he was 2 days out, which for a stranger doing arithmetic in a wasteland is genuinely excellent work. By day 24, the price of a single ration pack in the trading mall had gone past the price of a rifle. By day 26, it had gone past the price of a rifle and the ammunition for it. On day 28, a man listed his entire vehicle, fully upgraded, perfect frame, for 4 days of food, and it did not sell because everybody who had 4 days of food had correctly worked out that a vehicle you cannot eat is worth less than 4 days. I sold vegetables, not many, that was deliberate. I put 20 portions on the market at a time at an obscene price, and I let the channel come to its own conclusions about where they came from, and the conclusions were wonderful. He's found a resource area with plants in it. There are no plants in this world. There were no cigarettes in this world either. Report, cheating, ban the account. Liu Guohuo worked it out. Of course he did. He messaged me privately with a single question. Are you growing them? Yes. Would you consider selling seeds? No. Would you consider selling the produce at a volume that would let me feed 600 people? And that is the moment I want on the record because I said yes. Not for free. Nothing was ever free. I charged him rare materials at a rate that emptied his convoy's reserves twice over, and I made him agree in writing in the system's own trade log that the source would never be discussed. But I fed 600 people for 60 days out of 100 cubic meters of dirt in the back of my house, and Liu Guohua told every single one of them that he had negotiated it personally and let them thank him for it. I let him. It was better for both of us. He is the only person in that entire world who ever got a discount out of me, and he got it because he was the only one who asked a straight question instead of trying to be clever. The lighthouse was falling apart from the inside, and Zhang Haoran was in the middle of it. She could not leave her quarters. She could send messages because whatever they had been doing for 100 years had not included a plan for a prisoner with an interdimensional chat channel, and so I got a running account of a floating city discovering itself. They ran a census this morning. Arthur ordered it. Population 81,000, of which 19,000 are in the Hall of Dawn program. He didn't know the number before today. Nobody told him. They're rationing to 60%. There's a queue outside the distribution center that goes around 2 levels. A woman in the corridor asked me what a bird is. She's 40. She's seen the word. And then 3 days before Ding Lei's assault, Xiaodong came back last night and went straight to the lower hangar with 11 vehicles and did not report to Arthur. Minjin knows. Minjin is covering for him. I heard them through the floor and I couldn't make out most of it, but I heard the words offering and 10 days. I read that message 4 times. Get out of there. No. Horan, I have a vehicle that flies and a cannon that punches through space. There is nothing on that platform that can hold this thing for 19 seconds. And then what? Then I'm out, and nobody up here is listening to anything, and the next time their commander sells 5,000 of us to something, we find out afterwards. Again. You are one woman in a locked room. I am one woman in a locked room with a channel to 900,000 people. Do you understand what that is? That's the only wire out of this city, and it runs through me. I sat with that for a long moment. Then I typed the least clever thing I have ever typed, which is, I don't like it. I know. That's not a position. That's just a feeling. I know. Write it down anyway. So I wrote it down. 900,000 people never learned where those 11 words came from. The largest betrayal in that world's history and the only warning anybody got came from a woman under house arrest in an enemy city lying on the floor of a locked room with her ear to the boards for 3 nights running. An NPC hands you a rice cooker when you need one. I keep coming back to that. I built an entire theory about that woman out of the fact that she was helpful, because on that road, nobody was helpful, and the only explanation my head could produce for consistent kindness from a stranger was that she must not be real. That says a great deal more about me than it does about her, and I have had a long time to think about it, and I have not enjoyed a single minute of it. There was an auction platform in the middle of that market, and Guo Fen was running it herself. The lots were people, not slaves. Ransoms? She had taken the Black Dragon convoy by force from the leadership that built it, and rather than kill the 3 she had captured, she had chained them to a stage and was selling their heads to the highest bidder on the theory that somebody out there wanted them dead badly enough to pay. The tallest of the 3 was named Shu Lihua. She founded that convoy. Her sister had been killed by Yang Jian 8 days earlier as part of the arrangement that put Guo Fen on top of it. A one-armed man in the crowd started shouting the truth at her, all of it at volume. Look at this arm. Do you know how I lost this arm? Do you want to tell them, or should I? She shot him in the forehead in front of 10,000 people, and the auction continued. Liu Guohua bought all 3 lots. Then he walked up onto the platform, cut them loose himself, handed them clothing and water, and made a short speech about human dignity that was, I am fairly sure, entirely sincere in the moment he said it. Afterward, in a tent, Shu Lihua asked him the only question worth asking. Why did you really save us? Because I saw value in you. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. And what do you want out of it? Soldiers, resources, and loyal dogs. If you can help me, she said, if you can help me avenge my sister, I will willingly be your dog. Yang Jian invited me to a banquet 2 days later and paid 5,000 rare materials for the privilege. He put me at the head of the table and poured for me personally, and he had arranged a whole performance around the room, dancers and attendants, and a man playing something with strings. And I sat down and looked at it, all of it. Clear this circus out. It's putting me off my food. He cleared the room in 90 seconds. So why did you call me here? It's not too late to say it before we eat. No reason at all, truly, just to meet you. Very good. Then since there's nothing, don't mention anything later. I hate people talking in my ear while I'm eating. He held out for 1.5 courses. What he wanted was my name, not my help, not my weapons. He wanted to be able to say the words Xiaoming stands with Dawn Convoy out loud, and for that he offered 20% of everything the resource zone produced. I put my chopsticks down. I've heard something. I heard you didn't just help Guo Fen take the Black Dragon convoy. I heard you personally killed the captain she took it from. Is that true? His fingers started tapping on the table and did not stop. A drop of sweat came off his jaw onto the floor and I watched it land. My name can be notorious, I told him. It can never be evil. Do you understand the difference? Right. This banquet ends here. I stood up. And I'm not eating any of it. I'm fairly sure it's poisoned. The next 4 minutes were the best entertainment I had in that entire world, and I did not have to do a single thing. Zhu Lihua came through the side door in a Black Dragon uniform and opened Guo Fen's throat before anybody in the room had turned around. Tao Lei's people came through the front with White Shark backing them. Yang Jian called for his best man Wen Ming, who had 2 heavy machine guns and a reputation, and Wen Ming came in and set up and opened fire on Yang Jian's own people. He had been Liu Guohua's deputy on the first highway, different region, different road. Never met his own boss face to face in 6 weeks. He'd been sitting inside Dawn Convoy for 50 days waiting for exactly this evening. You two planned this from the beginning. They shot his arm off and Juliwa finished him with a knife, saying the same 4 words over and over while she did it. I watched the whole thing from the head of the table with a glass in my hand. When you watch a play, I said to nobody, you shouldn't try to guess the ending. It ruins it. And then the last move landed, and even I did not see it coming. A single shot came out of the dark and killed Bai Sha, the only ally in the room who had been promised 40%, the man whose guns had made the whole night possible. Liu Guohua covered him with a white cloak personally in front of everyone and grieved beautifully for about 90 seconds, and then recruited his convoy on the spot. 3 convoys became 1 convoy in a single evening, and it cost him 1 bullet and a cloak. Half the income of this zone, he told me afterward, and half the property of all 3 captains, yours. As thanks. Sensible. Then I left because the show was over and because the next bullet out of the dark had to come from somewhere, and I did not intend to be standing in a lit room when it did. I drove out of that zone before sunset, knowing exactly what came over the walls after dark. If you leave, said Lin Roxi, how many of them do you think will die tonight? It has nothing to do with us. I watched from a hill anyway. Without the large beasts, they held fine. That night, my front wheel dropped into a hole in the road 1.5 meters deep, and my entire vehicle stood up on its nose. 2 men were lying on the embankment they dug it out of, and I heard one of them explain the situation to the other in a whisper that carried beautifully across 40 meters of dead ground. Rob him? Rob my ass. Don't you know his car can fly? Don't you know what he's got mounted on it? Me who brought both of them back to the vehicle afterward. I told him he didn't need to bring them back. If I don't bring them back, how will you know whether I killed them? I lifted the motorhome out of that hole vertically, on flight mode, in front of 2 corpses and a very disappointed medical robot. Bing Bing had been carrying dinner when we went nose down. It spilled, he said, standing in the corridor with a cloth. It spilled. The message from Zhang Haoran came in at 4 in the morning. She was still under house arrest on a floating city, and she had heard something through a wall that she should not have heard, and she sent me 11 words. Don't go with Ding Lei's assault. Whatever he offers you, don't. Ding Lei had 5,000 people, and he had spent a week putting them together, and he had lighthouse hunters marching in the same formation with them, mechs and armored cars and everything. The biggest coordinated action any survivor ever organized in that world. I went to the second blood vortex from the other side alone at the same hour, because with 5,000 people pulling every guard in that ruin to the front gate, the back of it was empty. 2 snake dogs were on sentry duty at the rear. It's New Year. That's what they thought when they saw us, or as close to it as a thing like that can think. They had not eaten in years. The Barrett went down that street lengthwise and out the other end. Mihu took the bulls off the rooftops. 2 geosaurs came apart and then stood back up, healing off the Flower King's supply lines, so I put the soul-sucking blade into one of them and drank it through the connection. And the Flower King panicked and cut its own tentacle loose and abandoned the other one where it stood. Lin Ruoxi burned the king with the flamethrower while I held the approach. Outside at the front gate, at almost exactly the same minute, the lighthouse hunters who had been marching shoulder to shoulder with 5,000 human beings turned their guns around and put them into the backs of the people in front of them. Ding Lei got one word out. Why? For survival, said Xiaodong. For the Lord of Light and Shadow, you should feel honored to become a sacrifice for his ascension. Honor your 5,000 people, all of them. The diamond chest came up out of the pit while I was still hearing the gunfire from the far side of the ruin. 10 adamantite, a plant essence, dark iron, 300 liters of legendary gasoline, and a crimson antidote so that mothers need no longer worry about excessive crimson intake leading to neuroticism. I split it 3 ways. Then I remembered and made it 4. Sorry, I forgot you're not a person, you're a monkey. I drove around to the front of that ruin an hour later and found the field. The soul-devouring beast emperor was standing in the middle of it, not the one I killed. Another one, bigger, the size of a hill, and standing on top of its head in a gray robe with no face visible inside the hood was something the hunters were on their knees for. Light begets all beings follow the shadow. We respectfully greet the great lord of light and shadow. The voice that came out of that hood was not a man's voice, and it was not a woman's voice. Your work this time has disappointed me. I asked for 100,000. You have brought me 5,000. How do you intend to make up the difference? Xia Dong, commander of the Lighthouse Hunters, the man who had executed one of his own for cowardice without blinking, pressed his forehead into the dirt and negotiated for time. 15 days. Give us 15 days. Too long. 10 days. In 10 days, I stop eating that. I will wait for you outside. the blood vortex at Ningchuan City. Anyways, Ningchuan is where it started. The first vortex, the core of the whole mana ecosystem, the place the lighthouse has not set foot in for 100 years. Everything on that field came at my vehicle at once when they noticed me, all of it in one mass. Miho put the entire 5,000 round magazine of the Hell Gatling through them without lifting his finger, and the Shirang came up through the ground under my chassis, and Bing Bing burned it off with a flamethrower in short, neat brush strokes while making encouraging remarks about my cardiovascular health. And across 400 meters of dead ground through a pair of field glasses, Jiadong looked at a golden monkey on the roof of a flying motorhome and at a white-haired woman standing beside it who should have died 90 years ago. Then he looked at me, and the figure on top of the emperor's head turned slowly and looked at me too. I want to be precise about this because it is the only part of the story I have never made a joke about. It did not roar, it did not attack, it did not say a word. It simply turned its head across 400 meters and found me in a crowd of 10,000 corpses, and I felt it land on me the way you feel a hand on the back of your neck in a dark room. Then the hunters withdrew toward Ningchuan, and it went with them, and the field was quiet. I spent the rest of that day collecting 5,000 abandoned vehicles. It took 12 hours, and I did every single one of them because that is who I am now, and there is no point pretending otherwise. And while I worked, Lin Ruoxi and Mihu walked the edge of the field picking things up, not weapons, not cores, junk, bent metal, cable, half a window frame, a chair, picking up trash. Why are you collecting all that garbage? She straightened up with an armful of somebody's ruined roof panel and said the only hopeful sentence I ever heard out of her. Because when the disaster ends, if I'm still alive, we'll have to rebuild our homes. 100 years of hiding every emotion she had because feeling anything out loud makes you smell like food. And what was left underneath all of it was a woman collecting scrap for a house that does not exist yet. It will end, I told Estanda and Tom Breakstein. You can't do it. You said that the first time we met. You keep saying it, and I keep noticing that you keep walking next to me while you say it. She did not answer that. She went back to picking up trash. The channel wanted blood that night. 900,000 people had watched 5,000 of us get shot in the back by people we'd been fighting alongside for a month, and every second message was a plan to storm the lighthouse. Zhang Haoran messaged from inside it. They're in shock up here, too. Half the city didn't know. Arthur is screaming at his ministers, and nobody can tell him where Xiaodong is. Then get out. I'll come and get you. I can be there in 3 hours, and there is nothing on that platform that can stop this vehicle. No. Haran, somebody has to be up here when they work out what their own commander did. If I leave now, everything I've heard leaves with me. And I sat in the driver's seat of a flying fortress with a cannon that punches holes in space, and I thought about the day I decided she was an NPC. An NPC hands you a rice cooker. An NPC does not stay locked in an enemy city on purpose because she is the only person in it who is listening. I have made a lot of correct calls in this world, and that was not one of them, and I have never been so glad to be wrong about anything in my life. So here is where I'm standing. 31,251 people woke up on a highway with a rusted minivan and one day of being unkillable. 987,000 of us are on the board now from 100 different roads, and every one of us started exactly the same way. I had a van with holes in the windows, 20 liters of fuel, a snake, and a pistol out of a bronze box. Tonight, I own a flying house with mythical dragon scale in my skin, a monkey who shoots better than I do, a cannon that fires through space itself, a garden that grows food in a world where food does not exist, and 2 blood vortexes burned out behind me, 3 left. And the thing at the bottom of the last one is the reason any of this exists. But that's not the part I'm thinking about tonight. 10 days. That's what it gave them. 10 days to bring it 100,000 human beings outside the ruins of the city where all of this started, and it named the number the way you'd name a grocery order. I have never been afraid of anything on that scale before. I have shot a mountain in the face and eaten dinner afterward, but that thing turned its head across 400 meters of bodies and found me. Not the mechs, not the hunters, not the monkey with the machine gun, me. And the whole drive back, all I could think was the one thing you never want to be true about a god. It knows my name now.